Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is 8:47 a.m. We are live, February 26th, Thursday. 2 days left of February, and then we are done with the second month of 2026. It's actually crazy how quickly time is passing by. We're all getting older by the second. But 2026, we are about 2 months in, and we are headed into March. We are officially done with big tech earnings. We still have tech earnings. We still have some other companies over the next 2 weeks. Oracle, a bunch of different names that are going to be reporting. We had actually a lot of companies report this morning. We have a lot of companies reporting after the bell. It's going to be crazy today on the market close with the companies that we have reporting. We have Baidu this morning, D-Wave this morning, Warner Brothers, Hertz, Celsius. Congrats to those that are in Celsius. You guys crushed it. That stock is up 16% in the pre-market. So we will cover all of those earnings throughout the day. However, last night we had the big one. We had the big one. Nvidia reported earnings. We got a lot to talk about with Nvidia. And I know this stock's not really reflecting it. I mean, tell me something new. Over the past couple months, the stock has literally been range bound within about $10 over the past 8 months now. It has done nothing really since October, but they crushed earnings. They really crushed it. It's one of those crushed earnings where when we go through the numbers and we listen to Jensen and we kind of analyze what's happening here, I'm just happy. And I'm happy to be alive at a time where we get to see a company execute at this scale, because it's just remarkable. I don't think we're ever going to see something like this in the public markets again, unless we have another step change of technology like AI, which maybe will happen in the next 100 years. But right now we're living through it. It's happening. Nvidia is the toll booth that everyone must pay in order to access this revolution. And although the market might not want to reflect that in their multiple, because that multiple is going to drop again today when the stock market opens, it is incredible to see what's happening. So we got a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. And we'll keep going further with NVIDIA. S&P 500 there, that's up about 0.14%. Also today, I want to talk about the Jane Street headline that's been going on. I did a lot of digging on it last night. You can see Bitcoin right there. For some reason, Bitcoin's actually held up over the past couple of days. And, you know, we've talked a lot about the 1030 slam on this channel. Really, for the past 2.5 years, we've talked about why stocks at 1030 and crypto in particular at 10 a.m. takes a dump. Well, let's just say there have been some lawsuits to accuse certain funds of insider trading. And now over the past couple of days, we really didn't see a slam at 10 a.m. So we're going to dive deep into what's going on with Jane Street, because quite frankly, that might hold the key to what has happened with crypto over the past 5 months. And if that is done, then maybe crypto has more room to run. So let's get into it. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you all for being here. The chat should be working now. Unfortunately, towards the end of the NVIDIA stream, the chat wasn't working. Like, it would only let you send an emoji. It was really being weird. So now your chats should be able to go through and everyone should be able to talk and see everything that's going on. All right. For all of you asking me to make the instant coffee, I did it yesterday as a joke. Okay. I did it yesterday as a joke. Now I can do it again. It's right here. I can do. In fact, the reason I was late is because I was heating it up. So it's not really my fault today for being late. But if you guys make me do it every day, it's going to become a part of the show. And then it's your fault, because I did it yesterday for fun. I wasn't going to turn it into a bit. You guys want to turn it into a bit. So, I mean, I got to give the people what they want. And if the people want instant coffee early in the morning before we talk about stocks, then we got to give them some instant coffee. We gotta give them some instant coffee. Now, granted, the market did go green yesterday after we made this. So the day I don't do this and we go red, I know I'm gonna have to take a lot of shit for it. But regardless, cheers and good morning to everybody. Sensational. All right, NVIDIA earnings. Let's get into it. So they crushed. They absolutely demolished earnings. $68.1 billion in revenue. They beat by $2 billion. That is up 73% year over year. Data center revenue up 75% year over year. Net income, $42.9 billion. That's up 94% year over year. They somehow maintained 75.2% gross margins. And then this is really the only number that matters. Like, honestly, it's the only number that Wall Street cared about. Wall Street thought they would do $73 billion for the guide. right? Because the market is forward-looking, stocks live in the future. So the question was, can Nvidia keep this up, or has the cycle peaked? Is it over? Was this growth the most growth we were going to get? Nvidia has had deaccelerating growth since 2023, obviously because it's really hard to keep growing at 265%. Nvidia said we're going to basically do 80 billion. You know they're going to beat that by another 2 billion, so they're probably going to do 82 to 83 billion, which is going to be about 82.7% growth year over year in Q1. That is re-acceleration of growth. That is not just regular growth, because last quarter they grew 60%. Now they're growing 83% if they bring in about $81 billion, which, you know, they always beat the guide by a billion or two. Even if they don't beat the guide and they came in at 79.5 billion, that would still be 79% growth. I mean, this is unbelievable. They beat guidance by $6 billion. That's not easy to do. And quite frankly, you know, Wall Street needed them to beat not by 1 or 2 or 3 billion, but a sizable amount. And they did do that. The stock's still not reacting, which goes to show how sentiment is around Nvidia. And maybe the stock does react when the market opens, but that was the part of the earnings that I thought was just the most impressive. Jensen said computing demand is growing exponentially. The agentic AI inflection point has arrived. And essentially, if you listen to the call, the entire thesis of the call was that we are having a ChatGPT moment for agents. Now, what are agents? In the most simplest term, my understanding is that agents are LLMs that can actually do tasks for you. They can work with what's happening in the real world, work with different softwares, tools, etc., and do stuff. You can prompt it to say, I want you to do this, and it goes autonomously and does it without you having to have a conversation with the bot in and of itself. The number one question for Jensen, this was the first question, this is the question that I think all of us cared about, is 50% of your revenue came from hyperscalers, which is actually declining, which is good because it means that their base is diversifying. I was watching an interview yesterday of an Indian CEO in India that kind of, I'm probably mischaracterizing his company. It's called like Yapa Technologies. They're basically like CoreWeave for India. I'm so mischaracterizing it, but that's what it sounded like. They just did a deal to buy 20,000 Grace Blackwell GPUs, $2 billion deal. So, you know, to give more examples of the diversifying spend on NVIDIA, it's not just the hyperscalers. I think we're seeing a lot of examples, but 50% of the revenue is still the top 4 hyperscalers, including Meta. So then, you know, the question was, hey, can these guys keep spending, right? They're taking all their free cash flow and they're putting it into CapEx. Are they actually going to keep spending the amount of money that the projections that we have on Wall Street think are possible to spend? And Jensen had a very clever and simple answer. It's the same thing that a lot of us have been saying for a while, which is that he basically said they're not spending this money for fun. They're spending this money because they're growing. Their operating cash flows are growing as a result of spending more on CapEx. Why? Because they're able to generate more tokens. And in the agentic world that we are in, token generation is key to revenue. So it's very simple. It's like, okay, if they can generate more tokens, which means they can, for Meta, sell more ads, or for Google, get more people onto Gemini, or sell more cloud compute, whatever it may be, then they're going to make more revenue, which means if I can give you $1 and then I can make 1.5 from the dollar I give you, yeah, of course, any person would keep spending that dollar if it can give you 1.5 back. And in this case, Meta is given $1 and they're getting 3 back. And so, yeah, Meta is going to keep spending. So Jensen had a very simple response to this. I thought it made a lot of sense. I don't know if the street's going to necessarily buy into that prediction or that logic entirely, because, you know, the street is still concerned that these companies can't keep spending. But at least from Jensen's perspective, his last question, he went on a 7-minute rant, and I think it was a very impactful rant about why agents are here, why software is not dying, and also why the hyperscalers are going to continue to spend. And the guide that you're seeing, this $80 billion guide, kind of implies that it's not stopping anytime soon. This is what Jensen had to say yesterday when he was asked some more deeper questions about what's going on with software. He had a lot to say in terms of why software is not dead, and then the overall earnings itself last night.
Site for you. It could arrange a vacation for you. And so it can actually perform tasks. And that's the reason why we call them agents. They're agentic in their nature. What software companies, the reason why it's so exciting, of course, is because it can write software. What's going to happen are the tools companies, the platform, the ISVs, the SaaS companies, the tools companies, they will use agentic systems to develop their software. But enterprises are not going to go develop software. They're going to use agents to use those tools. And so what's likely going to happen is that agents won't replace the tools, but agents will use tools. That's the reason why we also say agents are tool users. Why write your own? Rewrite the browser when the browser exists and just use it? Why rewrite Excel when Excel exists? Just use it. And so all of these tools that we use today, whether it's Cadence or Synopsys or ServiceNow or SAP, these tools exist for a fundamentally good reason. And AIs, these agentic AIs, will be intelligent software that uses these tools on our behalf and help us be more productive. And so what's likely to happen, and this is very counterintuitive, it's very likely that because we have so many agents in our company now, the tool use will actually go up. And so, and you could see it all over the place. The number of C compilers that we use, the number of Python programmers the Python programs that we have, the number of instances are growing very, very fast because the number of agents we have that use these tools are going up.
I think the important thing here is Jensen is basically making the argument that this is a DeepSeek moment without saying it, right? In the whole DeepSeek moment, it was like, well, these reasoning models means that NVIDIA's compute is less necessary. And he's like, no, our compute is more necessary if we have these reasoning models. In this case, he's saying that the AI companies are going to be using the SaaS tools to intersect with their agents, and the SaaS companies are going to be using the agents to be able to offer value to their customers. So there's going to be a very symbiotic, synergistic relationship with AI and SaaS, not some type of competitive, ServiceNow is dead because Anthropic starts to get into that business. And then I thought the thought experiment that he makes on this argument is also very interesting. It's about how you should think of SaaS in the context of robots in the future as well.
I think a thought experiment that could be helpful is, imagine one of these days when we have robots and these robots are in our homes, it's very unlikely that the robot will come up with a new Cuisinart. The robot will just read the manual for the Cuisinart and just use the Cuisinart. It's more likely that instead of coming up with another way of doing microwaving, that the robot will just use the microwave. These tools exist for a good reason. And so I'm fairly certain future robots will use screwdrivers and wrenches and, pliers and things like that. And these tools are essentially in their digital form from the companies that you're talking about.
So they're not going to.
So I thought that was interesting as well. He's like, hey, when we have humanoid robots, they're not going to come to your home and try to figure out how to microwave food in some new way. They're just going to use the microwave to microwave your food. You're going to tell it to heat up the food, and they're going to go to the microwave and heat it up. Just like now, if you have agentic workflows, they're going to integrate with your CRM. They're not going to make an entirely new CRM, especially because to get widespread adoption of agents in the enterprise, they have to work with the software that you have, with the tools that you have, with the tribal knowledge of your business that your software is already embedded in. And they're going to be an accelerant for productivity and efficiency. They're not going to be a replacement. Now, maybe there is going to be some level of replacement. I think it would be naive to doubt that some of these companies are going to realize, hey, if we could do this ourselves, then why do we need to go through the application? But even Dario said yesterday in a new podcast that he did that he thinks the software will work in a very confluent way when it comes to the agents themselves. So, I mean, at some point, you either believe these people that are saying this is going to happen or not, and that means maybe software is close to a bottom. Now, Salesforce, unfortunately, they put up some decent results. The stock still cannot catch a bid. That stock's down 2%. We'll talk about Salesforce in a second. But overall, that's what NVIDIA had to say, or that's what Jensen had to say. And I think, the broader argument around software being dead probably is not that true. By the way, before we keep going, initial jobless claims came in at 212,000, below 215. So we got jobless claims this morning. 212,000 people applied for unemployment in the United States versus 215. I mean, look, the labor market's not in the best spot, but once again, we need 350,000 a week to 375 for there to be a recession. It's just very hard to say we are having a cataclysmic labor market when it's under even 250,000. So jobless claims, once again, continue to be in a pretty decent spot. Then you have the price targets this morning, pretty much across the board. Melius 380. Buy it. Bard 300. Buy it. Bernstein 300. Citi 300. Wedbush 300. Raymond James 291. Truist 283. Capital 280. JP Morgan 265. So across the board, the price target on Nvidia continues to go higher after they delivered some of the most impressive results we've ever seen. Yesterday, the 12-month forecast for Nvidia on an aggregate basis of 37 ratings was 265. Today, it is 274. Having said that, the number one question on everyone's mind is, all right, Amit, cool, great quarter, amazing. Why is the stock down? And, there are a lot of questions that sometimes don't have answers. My best response would be, first of all, the market hasn't opened, so I'd be very curious to see kind of how the market opens and, what algos come into play. This NVIDIA is one of the biggest stocks in the market, so there's a lot of forces that go back and forth on it. Number two is, again, if the street is going to consistently believe that semiconductors are cyclical and the cycle is running out soon, and they're going to look forward and say, well, the PE should be depressed in 2027 because we think the cycle ends in 2027, then I don't know if this quarter changed their mind. Having said that, the numbers were so unbelievable that you would argue it should change your mind, but maybe Jensen has to do this for another year for the street to really believe, oh my goodness, they're going to do $120 billion of net income. It's going to be the best net income that any company has ever done. They're going to do, I mean, they did 35 billion in free cash flow this quarter. They did 15 billion last year. If you just multiply that and say there's no growth for every quarter, I mean, you're looking at almost 150 billion in free cash flow. So look, from that perspective, I think at some point the stock price will reflect what's going on with the earnings growth. It's just too big of a company for that to not reflect it. Also, I think the broader S&P has to reflect. I mean, you know, the S&P can't be stuck while Nvidia is going to 250. So this is going to be one of those things where if you're long Nvidia, you're kind of long the market in general. I think it's going to be very hard for the S&P to be down 10%, Nvidia to be up 20%. Having said that, I think that gives us a chance to continue accumulating some really cheap Nvidia. I mean, if you actually take Jensen at face value of what he's saying about this agentic revolution and how we haven't even really, I mean, Jensen had a quote last night saying automotive, I don't know if people caught this, automotive could one day be as big as data center revenue. Right now they're doing almost, if you do the math, 285 billion per year on data center revenue. I mean, Jensen's still pretty optimistic about FSD and self-driving. We haven't even talked about robots. If you think this party keeps going, I mean, the stock's going to be, the stock on conservative estimates, if it keeps going the way it's going, it's going to get to a $10 trillion market cap. It might not happen this year, next year, even 3 years from now. But if you are holding on to your Nvidia and thinking of not selling, if 10 trillion is the exit and it's very possible to get there, then obviously that's an amazing opportunity. And then, you know, buying at these levels for a double is not crazy either. Now, are there better opportunities in the market that are much smaller market caps that can move higher? Yes, there's a lot of different ways to navigate it. I mean, that, you know, brings up the conversation around EOSC. Unfortunately, this company, which was touted by a lot of people as like the best energy play in the market, is down 30%. And the only reason I bring them up is because of two things. Number one, the stock was trading at 50 times price to sales. Once again, if you have a high multiple on your stock and you have bad earnings, this happened to Robinhood. So I'm not, I'm not immune to this either. You have a high multiple, you miss on revenue, you're going to get hit. This is what happened to EOSC. Number two is a lot of people were playing EOSC, and there's nothing wrong with the company, but I know a lot of people were playing it because they wanted to play the bottleneck of the AI revolution, which was energy. And EOSC presented this opportunity as an energy play that is the bottleneck of the AI revolution, which, by the way, is started by Nvidia. Some of those plays are not as safe as Nvidia. So even though Nvidia is not moving, it's also now down 30% on you in the morning. Now, I think EOSC is a good company. It'll recover. It really objectively did have a bad earnings. Like guidance was bad. Quarter over quarter earnings were bad. I don't even know what they're going to say on the call, but the CEO is going to have some justification to it was just a bad quarter. Like objectively it was bad. And you know, companies are allowed to have bad quarters, but sometimes just staying long the name that started this revolution in the first place, while looking for other alpha is important, even if that name is not moving, is not the worst thing in the world. By the way, this is where covered calls come in. I mean, if you're running covered calls on NVIDIA, covered calls have literally been a money printer all year. I mean, realistically, for the past 7 months. Because what do you need for a covered call? You need high volatility. That's an NVIDIA. You need good premiums for it to be worth your time. And then you need a stock that's relatively stuck. Like the stock being range bound is what allows you to yield the volatility every single week or every single month. And you know, that's happening with NVIDIA right here. So overall, I think they crushed it. I think it was a great quarter. We'll talk more about the rest of these earnings. We'll keep going from there. But I think long and strong on NVIDIA is the name of the game. And if this thing tanks, I will be happy to pick up more. Real last thing I want to show, Jensen actually mentioned the stock probably is going to go up right here when he was discussing software as well.
Of course, when ChatGPT came out, everybody was inspired by that. And then it was hallucinating too much. And then all of a sudden reasoning came out and people were inspired by that. And all of a sudden computing demand continued to shoot up. And then now the question is, you know, will AI ever be useful for enterprise? And here we are at a new inflection point with AI now agents being used in enterprises all over the world. The demand for these agent AIs are now skyrocketing, and the revenues are skyrocketing.
Sure.
And so I think these are things that people will understand, and they won't be able to hold back the stock much longer.
I mean, there's an explicit quote from Jensen. They won't be able to hold back the stock much longer. So even Jensen is you know, upset just like everyone else that like the stock has been held down, and he knows that you know, the stock should not be trading at these artificially depressed levels. But he is pretty confident as the CEO that they're not going to be able to hold it down for the long term. All right, so That's what we got on NVIDIA. Let's do some earnings real quick, and then I want to talk about what's going on with Jane Street. First of all, Celsius double beat. They crushed it 16% on the day. Celsius topped back in May of 2024 at $99. And, it fell all the way down to 18. So if you've just been able to ride that wave, DCA, and hopefully get an average below these levels, then you're doing great. 37% EPS, 26 cents versus 19 cents expected. 720 million versus 638 million. EPS is up 90% year over year. Revenue is up 117% year over year. The Alani Nu acquisition, along with the Pepsi deal, has obviously worked out very well for them. Beating EPS by 40% is incredible. And so you're seeing Celsius right there. That's up 16% on the day. And that one's doing great. EOSC, again, they missed by 367% on EPS. They missed by 38% on revenue. Just a bad quarter. Sometimes you have those things, and eventually they should be in a better situation in the future. But that's why that stock is down. D-Wave missed expectations by 50%, negative 6 cents versus negative 9 expected. That's up 2.56%. So I think this is the most amount of revenue they've done in a while on a fiscal year basis. But obviously they have a double miss. Stock is actually up 2.69%. The stock is already down a lot going into the print, so not too bad to see that one holding up. 4 had earnings as well. Shift4, I don't know why it's down 9%. I guess their numbers were not necessarily the best right here. We'll also talk about Salesforce in a second. Let me pull up the Shift4 numbers. Before I do that real quick, Baidu also had earnings. They beat on revenue. They beat on adjusted profit. They beat on adjusted operating profit. They're buying back $5 billion of stock. And the CEO said 2025 marked a pivotal year as AI became the new core of Baidu. Baidu is like the Chinese Google. That stock is also down 3.8%. 74% of companies so far in the S&P 500 have beat earnings. So you have a pretty good ratio of companies that have beat versus companies that have missed. And it's a healthy ratio given the level of growth that you're seeing in the broader S&P 500 multiple. Shift4 looks like they beat on the top and the bottom. The guide, once again, you guys have heard me say that a lot of times. You're beating on the top and the bottom, but then the guide ends up. I mean, revenue was a little below expectations, so you can call the revenue a slight miss. EPS was fine. Guidance, though, was not exactly what the street wanted to see. Also, they had flat free cash flow growth I'm looking at right now, and that's why that stock is down 9.5%. MP Materials is in 10 minutes. I didn't even know they had earnings today. All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Stock's up 1.43%. That's one of the hottest rare earth names. And in 10 minutes, we'll see their earnings. Last one was Warner Bros., which once again likely is going to be selling to Paramount, it seems. And if you're a Netflix shareholder, I think you want that to happen. They missed on EPS by negative 10 cents. They beat by 1% on revenue. EPS is up 50% year over year. Revenue is down 6% year over year. Warner Bros. Is flat. Again, more importantly for anything on that stock is really the acquisition. So earnings not as relevant. Shake Shack also did have earnings. That stock, wow, up 10%. I know Josh Brown really likes this one. Let me know if anyone's had Shake Shack. I've had it before. I do think it's one of the best burgers that you can get, to be honest. I don't know if it's international, but it really is one of the best burgers that's out there. Revenue of $400 million. That's up 22% year over year. Same Shack sales, which is like same store sales. That's up 2.1%. Operating income, $187 million. Yep, they beat on the top and the bottom as well. And that's why the street. Now, this stock actually got hit pretty hard in the summer. So, it is nice to see it get a little recovery, but it did get hit back in the summer. Bitcoin right there, 67,800 as well. Okay, In-N-Out is not better than Shake Shack. I'm sorry to all my West Coast people. In-N-Out is mid. To say that, honestly, my instant coffee tastes better than In-N-Out. Like, In-N-Out is good. I'm not saying it's bad. But the people that hype it up in California, like it's just the best thing on the planet is no. You guys haven't had a burger. Like, it is not. It's not even top 5. Like 5, anyone who says In-N-Out is better than Five Guys is smoking something. Like it's no, that's not the case. Again, I've been to In-N-Out many times. I like it, but it's not Shake Shack. It's not. Having said that, those are all the earnings. Let's get into Jane Street. Instant coffee, In-N-Out takes. I'm just triggering every day. Given I mentioned it, let's take another sip. The worst thing about this, I don't have sugar in my house anymore. I used the last bit of sugar yesterday. So it's actually, I can drink it without sugar. I don't really need the sugar I don't know why. Am I growing up and becoming an adult where I don't need sugar in my coffee? Like, am I just becoming a normal human being? Just regular black coffee. I feel like I feel like this is what it means to mature. All right, Jane Street. Let's talk about it. So for the past 2.5 years, I started really doing the market open in 2022. I started taking it seriously towards the end of 2023. I've noticed that around 10 a.m. to 10:30, stocks fall. We've called this the 10:30 slam. It is not my original thesis. There is an account on X that has been documenting this very well called Zero Hedge. You probably follow them for market commentary. And they have been doing a really good job trying to figure out, hey, like what is happening at 10:30 and why at 10:30 do stocks just magically seem to fall off a cliff? And quite frankly, they have been accusing a hedge fund on Wall Street. This hedge fund is very undercovered. They don't like to be covered. You probably don't know who the CEO of it is. Like it's not Ken Griffin. They're not out there doing talks inside of some conference to get hot takes out there. They tend to be very low key. They just like making money. They just got sued 3 days ago. And the lawsuit in which they got sued in is basically alleging that for the past 4 years, since 2022, they have been doing the following playbook. Have billions of dollars from investors, AKA raise capital, which is, every hedge fund does that. But then they're taking those billions of dollars from investors. They're buying spot Bitcoin, for example, at 68,000. They then open a massive short via options or derivatives. This is not what every hedge fund is doing. Sell large amounts of Bitcoin in minutes with algos combined with low liquidity or negative news to trigger panic selling. This is when people that are, institutionally managing money look at their IBIT and see it's falling off a cliff and they get kind of scared. Or this is retail investors that are getting scared that their Bitcoin is getting hit. Or these are people on leverage. If you're leveraged and you lose 5%, you could be liquidated entirely. That's what Jane Street is hoping for. They hope the price could then crash to say 62,000. They would then close their shorts for massive profits while losing just 5% on the spot price that they bought. They would then buy Bitcoin again at 62,000. They would squeeze the shorts that they put on, create FOMO to push the price higher, and then open massive shorts again. They do this on equities as well. Crypto has been the most obvious because of sort of the time in which it has played out. But your Nvidias, your Teslas, your S&P 500, the sort of large cap liquid names that would automatically at 10:30, you would see a red candle down. That is what's been happening. Jane Street got sued by Terraform, which back in 2022, for those that are keeping up with all the crypto stuff, they also went belly under. And as you can see yesterday, for the first time in a while, there was no 10 a.m. dump after the lawsuit came through. And, Jane Street is pretty upset at this lawsuit. This is another graph looking at this over the past couple of weeks. As you can see, every day at 10 a.m., this is going over the entire month of February, multiple examples of this is exactly at 10 a.m., the price falls. And I mean, if you're a hedge fund and you're doing this and you're getting away with it and no one's really accusing you of anything, then why would you stop doing it, right? You would continue to do it every single day. Yesterday was the first day at 10 a.m. where Bitcoin actually went up, moved $4,000. Ethereum moved, Solana moved, everything moved. Now, why was Jane Street doing this? Well, they made $10 billion in trading revenue in a single quarter. And obviously, if you're making $10 billion, you're not going to be too afraid to navigate this. So this has been, a story that's gone absolutely viral over the past couple of hours. Bloomberg, everyone's reporting on it, primarily based on the idea that the reason that 2022 had the level of crash that it had outside of the broader market and rates going up as well is that a lot of these shorts were already priced into what Jane Street's algorithms were looking for. And as a result, you've seen basically, this is one of the quotes right here, that Jane Street was running an algorithm that dumped Bitcoin every single morning at 10 a.m. every day for months, crashing the price, liquidating retail, buying back lower, rinse and repeat. The second they got sued, which again was literally 2 days ago, it stopped. The 10 a.m. dump disappeared. Now Bitcoin just had its best day in months. And so, the broader argument here is around market manipulation. Market manipulation is illegal. If you look up back in September of 2020, JP Morgan got a fine for spoofing the commodities market. Ironically, they were doing this on silver and a bunch of other different precious metals, where they were acting as if there was a bid coming in, when in reality, that bid was never coming in. It was a spoof bid that would bid up the price. They would then go short because there was never any liquidity in the first place, and they would capitalize on the short. Not to mention, FTX and Jane Street also had a lot of connections as well, which, goes to show kind of how this is necessarily, it goes to show the ethics of Jane Street working with FTX, and potentially FTX knew what Jane Street was doing and they wanted in on some of the action. and FTX ended up getting caught. Jane Street was a bit smarter on how they navigated this. So what is the takeaway for all of us as investors? Well, it means that we might not have this massive crypto glitch, as one could argue, that continues to happen if Jane Street isn't able to manipulate the market the way that they've been manipulating the market over the past couple of weeks. And I think today will be really important at 10 a.m. to see, does the Bitcoin spot price continue to crash the way it has crashed, or do things get really different? And if things actually go a bit different, then I think we're going to be able to see some more momentum on Bitcoin at a meaningful level. Yes, Jane Street in India, that's another good point. I was looking at this last night as well. Jane Street has been essentially kicked out of India for manipulating the crypto market, which is not the best thing as well, or not just the crypto market, but also the Indian equity markets. India's equity Nifty 50 has not necessarily been in the best situation. And one of the reasons that they've been manipulating the Indian market is because, once again, that market has been relatively flat. They've been able to do a lot of different things. Indian regulator back in July banned Jane Street from dealing with securities because of accusations around manipulation and fraud that they were committing. As a result, you're starting to see potentially a lot of people wake up and see this necessarily change. Yes, I think a lot of people in the chat that are saying, what can Tom Lee say about this? I would imagine, Tom Lee's very friendly. He never even called out Binance by name, even though Binance was part of the reason why we had that October glitch. I wonder if he calls out Jane Street by name. I mean, look, he has a perfect scapegoat right here. If Jane Street was, and I don't think they were the only reason, but they were one of the bigger reasons for why there were so many liquidations, which, the liquidations is what caused people to want to get out of crypto. It definitely ruined sentiment. And if Jane Street was profiting off that, obviously that could be part of the reason why ETH and Bitcoin, because again, a lot of people, when ETH collapsed from 4 to 2 and Bitcoin went from 120 to 70, a lot of people just said, oh, that's what crypto does. And it's like, sure, that's what crypto does. But also, we're in a different type of environment where, like, yeah, crypto can do that. But you would need some pretty big forces given the institutionalization, given MicroStrategy, given retail, given the ETFs, which, by the way, the ETFs, for some reason, magically had positive inflow yesterday. The day after Jane Street gets sued, $506 million just happened to come into the Bitcoin ETFs yesterday. You would think there would take a larger force for this thing to crack as hard as it did. But no, it could have just been the level of fear and anxiety that Jane Street put into the markets and then the profiting off that, which led to more momentum to the downside. They manipulated the bank Nifty 50 index in India. They bought the major banks and then sold during the short, and then shorting the bank. Yeah, so that's what part of what I was reading on yesterday, in particular the financials, which is why India got so pissed off at them, because it's like, you manipulate some tech stocks, whatever, you manipulate some retailers, but if you're manipulating the banks, like, the banks control the flow of capital. So if you're Jane Street and you're out there trading the banks long and short and freaking out people thinking they don't have access to their money, yeah, that becomes a bit aggressive. And I think that's why India also got mad at them as well. Now, based on the quarterly reports that we're seeing that Jane Street has also been forced to disclose based on this lawsuit, again, they're getting sued by Terraform, $10 billion in a single quarter. To give some context on $10 billion in a single quarter, it is more than what Goldman, JP Morgan, Citi, or Bank of America made in the same period. None of those companies, based on their trading desk, have made $10 billion. And so, again, they're being sued right now for insider trading that helped trigger the $40 billion Terra collapse that was back in 2022. I believe that had to do with the Luna token as well. And maybe this lawsuit changes things. Maybe it really does change things. The broader takeaway for all of us as investors is, number one, you are competing with Jane Street if you're trying to go leverage long or short, at least when it comes to the crypto markets. For the people that go 250x leverage on Coinbase with perpetual futures, sometimes you're competing with an entity that simply is not even smarter than you, but just has more control, I think is the best word, than you. And, when they have more control, they have more power, they're able to manipulate, and it's hard sometimes to compete with them. Having said that, now it might be easier to compete if this lawsuit is actually going to go into effect. I'm sure Jane Street's probably going to pay $1 billion parking ticket and they're going to get through with it, and hopefully they don't do this again. But I don't think the lawsuit's actually going to shut down the firm or anything because they have too much money. But that's one thing to think about. It's like, when you're trying to play with leverage, you are really competing with some of the big guys. Number two is, for all of us that have been suffering in the crypto world or with equities that have been rooted within crypto, MicroStrategy, Hood, BM&R, et cetera, Coinbase, maybe this is a bright side for things that are about to change. I still think we're probably, I mean, undeniably, we're in crypto winter given how the prices have declined. And unless we get some meaningful level of liquidity entering the system, either through QE or through rate cuts, we're probably going to have a bit of a demand shock on these prices, not to mention gold and silver continue to rally higher, although they're down today. Silver down 4% right here, which takes money out of crypto. But if you don't have this illegal manipulation and sentiment improves, those incremental dollars from ETF buyers, for example, can probably come back into crypto. Not to mention Jane Street also manages the IBIT BlackRock ETF. So I think Larry Fink is probably going to be making some calls today because Jane Street is one of the top holders of IBIT. They own $20.3 billion of IBIT. Morgan Stanley's at $13 billion and BlackRock's at $12.7 billion. So not only are they going massively long short on spot, they also are able to hedge because they already own so much of crypto in the ETF market that they're just able to do so many different forms of manipulation, which is what the lawsuit is accusing them of. Again, the Terraform back in 2022 is the most egregious form of it. And maybe that leads to potentially things changing. So that's what we got. That's got to be a conflict of interest, 1000%. It's just when you're dealing with this much money and you have that much power, I really doubt Trump's SEC is going to investigate them or take them down. And they're going to pay a parking ticket. It'll probably be $1 billion, maybe a couple billion, but hopefully the insider trading stops. Hopefully the manipulation stops. That would be the most important thing. And as a result of that, maybe we can keep moving forward. And this is why you never see Jane Street in the press. Like Ken Griffin and Citadel, he is very much in the press. He wants to be known. I mean, people were saying he might run for president one day. Like Citadel's usually squeaky clean. I'm not saying they don't have their bad moments, but they tend to be a hedge fund that operates by the books. And, they just make a lot of money because they're one of the biggest market makers. Jane Street, you don't see anything. You don't see any media. They never put out a podcast. Like they like to be underground, and they just control a lot of capital to be able to work underground, and hopefully the manipulation might end up stopping. So that's what we got with Jane Street and BTC. 68,000 right there on Bitcoin. We'll see at 10 a.m. how that one reacts. Nvidia 195.56. Let's do the red or green poll in the chat and see what people are thinking. I think Nvidia dumping to 190 today would not be crazy given that it's not moving up in the pre-markets off those results. However, I could also see a reversal back to 204, 205, where it was trying to break through yesterday, simply when people wake up and say, we cannot let this stock continue to be this bad. And my gut tells me we're going to be more flat or not versus like an immediate boom. But it would be nice to see a break over 200 and then holding that $200 level, because that's what the street has been waiting for a long time. The changes in transaction rules on IBIT let Jane Street transfer crypto directly for shares for IBIT. 1 month later, massive manipulation. Wow, I don't even know that. I did not even know that. Yeah, I mean, this story gets so deep, and it's been I stayed up late last night reading a lot about it because we talk about the 1030 slam every day, but we chalk it up to just algos or whatever. But like, no, there's like a legit entity that has been creating. Because also when Bitcoin collapses $4,000, like stocks inevitably feel a little bit of the pain of that, right? Even if stocks aren't always correlated to it. And then if you're manipulating stocks as well, then everything just ends up getting hit. All right, we got 5 minutes until the market opens. Let me know in the chat what you guys think will happen with Nvidia as well. I mean, if we do see anywhere below 190, I would be interested to add once again. Celsius right there, 16%. Double beat, that's doing well. Shift forward down 11%. Guidance was a miss. MP, I don't have their earnings yet, but that's up 2%. We'll see if we have their earnings. After the bell today, we'll have Chris from Macro Thursday. But before we get into Macro Thursday, we have SoundHound, Dell, Duolingo, Intuit. Oh, MP's after hours, actually. MP's after hours. I'm looking at it right now. Okay, so we'll see MP after hours. We have Square, we have Marathon, we have Rocket Lab, we have Wolf, we have Monster, we have Coupon, we have Autodesk, we have Rocket Mortgage, we have Sunrun. I mean, there's going to be a lot of companies reporting today, and hopefully those companies will be able to continue to beat and show momentum. Salesforce, let's talk about that real quick. I think Salesforce is getting a little desperate. So Salesforce has never done a video call in their life. Last night, they did a video call. It's kind of funny because Palantir and Robinhood kind of forced a lot of companies to realize that you need to like actually talk to your investors. And when your stock is down 40%, you might have to really talk to your investors. So it was kind of cringe though, dude. They did it like a podcast, and they actually invited their customers to talk as well. And it was just kind of weird. It's like they brought their customers from Shark Ninja and they're talking to them. It's almost like a pseudo podcast. And then they took questions. And I mean, I like that they did it. I like the trend of seeing more video stuff, but also I think they realized that the stock is getting to a level where they need to do something about this. Benioff basically said, hey, we are going to make sure that we buy back our stock. They initiated a $50 billion buyback. I also think that's pretty desperate. At the end of the day, I don't think they necessarily have the economics to be buying back their stock at the scale that they're buying it back at. The other thing that's important when you actually go through the balance sheet is that 6 to 7% of their growth is going to slow down organically, which means, they're guiding for 10%, but a lot of that is just inorganic growth. Operating margin is not growing at all. And it's showing zero ability to scale primarily because they have a lot of SBC, because they have a lot of salespeople, and their M&A costs are also very massive. So do I think the stock's undervalued? Yeah. I mean, it's getting to the point where it's trading at like one-time sales. Absolutely, it is undervalued. There's no question about it. However, it is getting to the point where I don't know if Benioff doing a video call is going to be enough to pump this thing to get the market to see the undervaluation. I also don't think the buybacks are going to be enough. Now, the analysts kind of upgraded the stock. They kept their price targets around 250, 300. The stock should be higher from here, but I do wonder if sentiment is going to actually move to the upside. Salesforce was down yesterday, getting a little bit of a pump right there, up about 1.07%. I'll be very curious to see Adobe's growth as well. And again, Salesforce guided for 10% growth. That's just not a lot of growth. I don't know if the market's super excited about that. Even with the buyback. So they're going to have to find some really unique ways to figure out how the growth story increases and how they stay on top of the AI business. Agentforce is now almost $1 billion business, which is cool. The question is, how much of a premium is the street going to give to that? But that's what we have with Salesforce. Are you picking up any software? Are you waiting for strength? The only software name I've been adding is Zeta because I genuinely do think it's undervalued. However, I think at some point software is going to have to pump. Jensen was pretty clear as well that this narrative that everyone has that software is going to die is just not true. And it's pretty logical the way he's talking about it. I think all of us agree with it as well. So look, these are all in nibble territory. Could they go down another 10, 20% from here? Yeah, especially if we have a market drawdown. But I mean, are they taking Adobe below 200? Are they taking Salesforce to 150? Because if they do, I think it just becomes a true deep seek moment. So not buying one of the bigger names yet. Zeta's been on the list. I think Adobe's numbers are very attractive. ServiceNow is also very attractive. But after you get those Nvidia earnings, dude, you just like, if you're a growth investor, you just want to buy more Nvidia. Is there hope for TTD? No. And quite frankly, Zeta's CEO called out TTD the other day in an interview, and he said we're eating their lunch. And, sometimes you do have to call out your competitors. TTD down 15% on the day. The stock went from 140 down to freaking 25 over the past year. So this one has definitely taken a hit. All right, 30 seconds. Let's see what we get for Nvidia. Again, it is a bit bearish that Nvidia put up those results and the market is still not moving. So it would not surprise me if the broader market goes a bit red today because those results should move the market. However, maybe we get a reversal in the next 10 seconds and maybe we see the market wake up. If not, then this is what we're going to have to deal with today. Thursday, February 26th, 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Nvidia goes red. Nvidia goes red. I mean, that's quite incredible. But there she is, going red on the day, 193.50. The market is just not buying it yet. S&P, as a result, also goes red. TSM goes red. Amcor goes red. Palantir goes red. Iren, Corning, Robinhood, Coinbase, all of these also go red. Salesforce getting the bid. Adobe getting the bid. Celsius getting a bid. So your software name's getting some momentum. Wow, Zeta also getting... Okay, so Zeta's not going up because it's magically going up. It's going up because Salesforce is going up. It's going up because Adobe's going up, just like Zeta wasn't going down magically because Adobe or any of these other names were going down. I mean, all this is controlled via SaaS. So you're seeing the algos go to SaaS. You're seeing them dump growth in semis. Transmedics is down. Reddit is down. CleanSpark's down. Amazon goes red. Shopify, which is kind of SaaS and growth, that's going up. Wow, ServiceNow, 5%. That is also going up. Microsoft 403. Microsoft definitely leading the charge on these SaaS names. Interesting. So pre-markets had Nvidia green, software red, and it flips. Market opens, Nvidia goes red, software goes green. Now, software is trying to hold on to its green. Salesforce was just up 3. Now it's up 1.5. So it just gave up a little bit of momentum, got rejected at 197. But if it can even hold a 2% day, I think the street would be excited. ServiceNow really getting some momentum. Pure Storage, that stock I think should be up. They had good earnings. That's down 7%. I think that stock should get some momentum, but that's getting hit. Rocket, that's up about 1%. Did IGV bottom? That's the question, folks. IGV up 1.2. It was up 1% yesterday as well. Some of this SaaS momentum looks like it definitely is closer than not to the bottom. Shake Shack, that's up 12%. Celsius, that is up 12%. Nebius, that is up 0.5%. Sezzle, great earnings as well. This is another fintech. Sezzle and Chime crushed it. Sezzle's up 31%. It's a relatively small company, $2.8 billion market cap. But it looks like their numbers, I mean, we saw their numbers yesterday, were pretty damn good. And then Chime, I think, is up 10%. Chime is up 8% as they had good numbers as well. Robinhood, 77.47. That's almost about to go green. SanDisk, is that green? SanDisk is also green. That's up 3%. Nvidia continues to go down. That's incredible. That's incredible. Software, by the way, these green candles aren't looking the healthiest. I mean, they're not really getting to some higher levels. Hopefully in the next 5 minutes they can stay. If not, unfortunately, they might fade out like they did yesterday, but they're trying to hold on. Microsoft looks healthier than the other names. Microsoft right there at 404. That is up 1%. Wow, NVIDIA, are we going below 190? I think we might be going below 190. IONQ, they had a good earnings. 17% beat. They beat EPS by 600%. That definitely got the street excited. And you're seeing the quantum names along with D-Wave get some momentum right there. That's also up 5.2%. NVIDIA will range from 125 to 200. Okay, I don't think you can have that wide of a range on the stock. I mean, if that's the case, you can say any stock will range between $100. But I do think 180 to 200 is more reasonable as the range. And this is why covered calls might be the play on NVIDIA for a while. Reddit, that's down 2%. Bitfarms is up a little bit. Rocket Lab actually goes green. Broadcom goes down with NVIDIA. Enphase goes down. Where's AMD? AMD goes down with NVIDIA, 3%. My goodness, the street just doesn't believe in this narrative. I guess the street wants more proof. 80 billion you would think would be enough, but it's not. Either it's the algos trying to shake out the weak hands right here, which definitely is possible. Software is not holding it, guys. Software is not holding it. Look at Salesforce, dude. 197 to 192. That was a 3% pump gone in less than 4 minutes. I mean, if the market really wants to rotate from semis to software, be my guess, but because semis have had a pretty good year so far, excluding NVIDIA and AMD and Broadcom. But the software names are barely holding on to their momentum. Shift 4, 15% down. Again, fintechs have not been in favor, but my goodness, that's getting it. Robinhood might catch a bid based on this Jane Street stuff, because if the market thinks the Bitcoin manipulation is done, again, if Robinhood is pegged to crypto, you might see a bid on Robinhood just based on the idea that the crypto manipulation might not be as aggressive. Bloom Energy, that's down 4%. AMD is collateral damage with NVIDIA right here. The stock was at 215 yesterday on the Meta partnership. It's taking a hit. It is taking a hit. TTD, I would not go bottom fishing on this. Down 13%. There are some structural issues within their advertising business. So that stock, unfortunately, taking a hit. Where's Duolingo? Duolingo, I'm actually really interested in today. I'm really interested to see if the market values them as like a growing SaaS company or if they're an AI commodity. Chris Camillo said they're going bankrupt yesterday. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's a $5 billion company. I don't know if they would go bankrupt, but you definitely have a lot of people thinking that they're going to get commoditized pretty heavily. Sezzle right there, that's up 34%. Nebius, that goes flat. Netflix, are we green? We are greeny green. Congrats to those who bought Netflix in the 70s. Larry Ellison kind of bailed you out here by deciding to pay so much money for assets that probably are not going to be worth that much in 10 years. But I think he's giving you a get out of jail free card on Netflix. Where is EOSE? This one got hit. Oh my goodness, 34% down. I don't know a lot about this company, but even after a 34% drawdown, they trade at 32 times sales. Again, some of these with high multiples. And now, granted, I don't think they would have fallen 34% just because of the valuation. They objectively had bad earnings. So, but the fact that they're down this much and their price of sales is still pretty aggressive, you know, it goes to show that these stocks have some high multiples and they need to be perfect when you're trading at these multiples. Rocket Lab, you know, they got to have a good quarter although they're down a lot from 99, they still trade at 70 times sale. Like, they really need to put up some decent growth today. I don't think they're going to be profitable, but if they could surprise profitability, that'd be nice. So that's going to be an important quarter as well. SanDisk up 3. NVIDIA are below 190. Wow. Tanner's going to have a field day with this. Tanner will be going on a rant today about this. 189.70. All right, let's see. Let's see how far they take it down. Let's see how far they take it down. The PE on NVIDIA, we're going to get some more analyst upgrades or analyst earnings estimates soon. But from what I'm looking at, wow, the PE is now 23. The EPS estimate went from 776 to 827. That's probably going to be closer to $9, which means it's about 21 times earnings on NVIDIA. 189.68, down 3%. Option sellers win. Option sellers won last night. If you bought calls, you got screwed. If you sold calls, you won. Celsius still up 15%. There has to be some logic behind NVIDIA's price action. What do you think? I think there's two simple things. The easy scapegoat answer is manipulation. The more realistic answer, which I do think like the algos after those numbers probably are playing around with the stock a little bit. But I think the more realistic argument is the street, again, is really concerned about if this growth, if one day we wake up and Google says we're not spending that much on CapEx, and then boom, NVIDIA falls 40% because the market's like, oh, the cycle's over. It's done. Like, I think that's what the street is really worried about. And Jensen clearly said yesterday, that's not going to happen. Now, maybe he's wrong, but he said Google's going to keep growing their cash flows, essentially, which means they're going to keep paying us. He also said the best hedge against that happening or that stopping, the CapEx stopping, is us creating a better product every year. Essentially, NVIDIA's creating a new iPhone every year, but they're going from iPhone 3 to iPhone 7, not iPhone 16 to iPhone 17. And if you believe the agentic revolution is real, if you believe robots, cars, all the basic bull cases, then the CapEx is not slowing down. And I think maybe the market wants to see another couple quarters of the CapEx not slowing down and the revenue growth continuing to accelerate to give it a multiple. Maybe that's the logic behind why this is getting hit. MP right there, that's up about 1%. I think NVIDIA could hit 145 in 120 days. I mean, look, I think that could happen too. I just don't think that's going to happen independent of the market going down. Like, I really think these doom and gloom narratives about the biggest company in the world falling and losing $1 trillion in market cap, when people put out those price targets, I don't think they're realizing for that to happen, either the company fundamentally has to mess up in some catastrophic way. And you can name a bunch of different examples of that. Obviously, missing the earnings, et cetera, would be a big thing. Vera Rubin's delayed for 2 years, some type of headline like that. Or the market has to go down. And I think it's more realistic when NVIDIA's 8% of the S&P that if the market takes a 10% haircut, yeah, of course, NVIDIA could get hit back to 145. It could go lower than that. But outside of that happening, the only other thing you can point to is earnings. And I think the earnings have been more than justified to at least keep this stock in the range that it's in. SoFi as well going green, 1930 for SoFi. UNH, we are up 3%. EOSC almost under. Okay, so maybe EOSC is finally worth doing a deep dive on now, because I knew the stock has always been expensive. It's probably still expensive here, but down 40%. I know there's a lot of hype around this name. Maybe now is the time to see if this one's worth bottom fishing. But again, then you look at NVIDIA's growth. I mean, now if you're an NVIDIA investor and you're buying a stock outside of NVIDIA, you really have to ask yourself, all right, the stock that I love is just guiding for 80% growth with 75% gross margins. They're going to do the most free cash flow net income out of all the Max 7. If you pick another stock, it has to live up to the opportunity that NVIDIA is presenting here. And so I think a lot of people might have to make that decision when they think about what's happening with NVIDIA. Altria Group, shout out to Steve. He's loved this one. 52-week high, 6% dividend. This is one of the few dividend names that has given you really good capital appreciation and given you a dividend. These guys make cigarettes. For those that don't know, Altria Group is up 21% year to date, as the stock is also yielding you a 6% divvy. Not too bad. IONQ, again, that making move, that's up 20%. Good earnings. Yeah, Shift 4 got wrecked, unfortunately, 18% down. I don't really know why. I know they missed on guidance and free cash flow was flat. I don't know why this thing is down 18%. Shift 4 also has a buyback plan, which I always felt that was weird because the market cap's $4 billion. They have like a $5 billion buyback. I would much rather them put that money into growth over buying back their stock. So that's something about them that's always confused me, but 18% down is a bit aggressive, it feels. How is Lulu up and Nvidia's down? That is kind of crazy. I see. I don't even want to get that animated and be upset at the market for taking Nvidia down. It kind of feels like we're in this type of a market right now where Nvidia is not going to 220, 230 that easily, just given the broader sentiment of the S&P, which has barely moved all year, has to move with it. And I don't know if the market wants to take the S&P up, and they're not taking Nvidia up if the S&P doesn't go up. So if anything, I think Nvidia stays flat. Now, inevitably, I think they both move. Rocket Lab hitting 71 high of day. Netflix almost 84. Look at that, 72 to 84. But unfortunately, Nvidia's not really catching that bid. Meta getting a nice little pump, 660 as well. Walmart's up today. Fun. Look at that. Walmart getting moved. Nubank had a good earnings. I don't know why they're down 5% either. The only argument I could say for Nubank and Shift 4 is fintech. Banks, SoFi, Hood, we saw what happened to those guys. Now, Sezzle is also fintech, and they just had really good numbers, so that's why the street's giving them some love. But Nubank did not have a bad quarter. They continue to dominate in Brazil and Latin America, so I think it's more sentiment around the broader fintech trade. You should do a deep dive on Path. Okay, the problem with Path, which I know has become a darling for a lot of people on X, this thing is down a lot from the highs last month, is that this actually seems like one of the companies that could be automated by Claude. Now, I don't know enough about it. That's just my gut reaction, but robotic processing automation feels way more in threat for a company like Path than, ServiceNow or Salesforce's CRM or Adobe's Premiere. But, maybe the multiple continues to get more interesting if it falls. SanDisk, that's still up 2. Nvidia, still below 190. IGV, are we getting a pump? Okay, that's up almost 2. Where is Salesforce? Yeah, Salesforce holding on to about 1.7 today. You would think with the 50 billion buyback authorized, this thing would get at least a 5% move, which, by the way, 50 billion is it's basically 25% of the entire market cap. So at some point, you would think the stock is going to have to react to that. HIMS is up 2.4. Where's Palantir today? Figma's up a bit. Palantir 135.90. That's up. Weird that Palantir is not dumping with Nvidia. Usually they move together. Tesla as well, trying to go green. So this is really an Nvidia only dump that we're seeing, not a broader growth stock dump. But usually Nvidia causes those broader growth stock dumps. Amit, do you own any AMD? Yes, it is minuscule compared to my Nvidia position. I bought it at 207 when it fell from 250. Right now we're at 205, 206 on AMD. But Nvidia's become a very, very big position at this point. And I feel like I should be more upset it's not up on those earnings, but genuinely, for Nvidia to crack 212, those all-time highs, you need the market to cooperate. And remember, when it did it in October, it wasn't just Nvidia. Bitcoin was at 120, Palantir was at 200, Robinhood was at 150, Tesla was pushing 480. Everything was moving last time Nvidia actually made an attempt at all-time highs. And right now, everything's depressed. So I can only imagine if Nvidia missed earnings, what the stock would be doing. But if everything's depressed, then maybe Nvidia stays depressed with it, because Nvidia basically moves the entire market. And if the market doesn't want to move right now for a host of reasons, not to mention you had Marco Rubio coming out yesterday. He said a bunch of stuff about Iran. He basically signaled we're going to attack. I don't know how much more explicit he could have been, but he basically said Iran is unwilling to change their option on nuclear weapons. We cannot allow them to have a nuclear weapon, yada, yada. And then you have, the Middle East start to ramp up with more U.S. fighter jets. It becomes kind of obvious that they might be seriously trying to do this. And that could also be holding back the market to an extent of just the fear of a conflict starting soon. AppLovin, that's also up 1% as well. Big Bear AI, that stock's up about 1.6. The stock was at $8. Again, these guys have negative growth. So I don't know why people are too excited about them. Maybe there's a qualitative story here, but there's not a quantitative story. There's another AI company like Nvidia that's growing 80%. It's just incredible. 189.50. I mean, at this point, send it to 185. Give us a real dip here if we're going to go down. Circle, great quarter. The thing about Circle that I realized after going through the quarter, wow, up another 7%, is that stablecoin adoption is like I know Ethereum's not showing it, and Ethereum's kind of seen as like the stablecoin winner, but the company behind the actual rails in the back end that's helping make stablecoins a thing, which is Circle, is seeing massive growth. I mean, USDC supply is up 77% over the past year. So, I mean, eventually the price will follow when it comes to the other crypto assets that are involved in it, but stablecoins are not slowing down. And Circle deserves to get that momentum. C3 AI, yeah, that was bad. That was bad earnings, down 18%. For those that are OG Pounter, we had a lot of debates about C3 AI versus Pound. I don't even know why we had those debates, but back then the ticker symbol AI actually made the stock go up compared to, I think Pounter was like down 20%, C3 was up 40% at one point in 2023. People are like, did we pick the wrong? Like, Pounter is the AI company, right? Not C3 AI. And, you know, this stock has just not been able to execute. This is a Thomas Siebel company. And they just have not been able to hit their numbers. AMD, 205, that's down 2. Pounter actually up on the day, 1.3. What about CoreWeave? Now, CoreWeave, I would imagine CoreWeave, you know, I know it got to 150, a minimum 115, 120, where it was at a couple months ago. If NVIDIA is saying we have 80 billion of revenue coming in, a lot of that's also going to be contracted through CoreWeave that's reselling a lot of those GPUs. I mean, I can't imagine how CoreWeave does not continue to grow triple digits. Now, they have a lot of debt, which is, you know, the reason people get upset at them. But the reason they have all that debt is because they keep growing as fast as they do. They have NVIDIA as the largest shareholder. NVIDIA is basically giving them a put option. Like, I mean, I don't own CoreWeave. I own Nebius here, but I don't think CoreWeave, you know, people that have like $50 targets on it. It's like, looking at NVIDIA's numbers, you can't imagine this stock getting that low because they're just going to continue a baseline level of growth that is not slowing down. Same thing with Broadcom. That NVIDIA guidance was super bullish for Broadcom, even though they're in custom ASICs. Broadcom right there down 4% on the day. EOSC down 40%. That's ugly. That is ugly. Morgan Stanley says hyperscaler AI investment is set to exceed .com era levels with CapEx intensity projected to hit up to 45% of sales by 2028. If that happens, NVIDIA is probably going to 10 trillion. I mean, if by 2028, 2 years from now, 45% of revenue is CapEx for the hyperscalers, which again, that's one perspective that Morgan Stanley has. You'll probably have people with other perspectives, but if that happens, yeah, that's the future that Jensen laid out last night, and it's going to be pretty massive. But the street doesn't believe it. The street doesn't believe it. Adobe, that's up a little bit right there, 261. Butterfly Networks, that is up 50% on the day. Looks like these guys had a decent earnings. This is a small cap company. It was worth 500 million in the morning. It's worth $1 billion today. So, you know, definitely a smaller name that's out there. But looks like they crushed earnings as well. Yep, beat on the top and the bottom, beat on EPS, beat on revenue. Revenue's up 41% year over year. Gross margins at 67.3%. That's why that stock is catching the bid. So you have some really violent moves. Butterfly's up 53. EOSC is down 40. Both of these around the $1 to $2 billion market cap range. As that's catching a bid. Honest is up 17%. Did they have earnings last night as well? I still don't get why people like this company, dude. I'm sorry. I don't get it. It's biodegradable diapers. I really don't get why people are obsessed with this thing. I don't freaking get it. I like Jessica Alba too. She's gorgeous. But goodness, dude. Really? This is what people are obsessed with? Tesla 411. Nvidia, low of the day. Actually, no, 188 was the low of the day. We'll see if it stays there. Zeta is keeping up a 3% move. It's because you don't have kids. Yeah, maybe that's true. But still, there's just a lot of other opportunities out there. A lot of other opportunities. That dude, thanks for the super chat, Amid. How do you feel about Rocket Lab in today's earnings? They've grown on me over the recent months. I think the good thing about Rocket Lab going into these earnings is that they're not $99, which I felt was really unsustainable as a price compared to their growth. Having said that, I kind of feel like Rocket Lab's in Hood situation where Hood fell a lot before the earnings. It was at like 85 from 120, and then it fell again on earnings because they missed on something. Now, granted, Hood missed on revenue. If Rocket Lab doesn't miss on any of their numbers, then maybe that stops them from going down. But it's still a growth stock with a high multiple that has not been rewarded in this market. It just hasn't. Like if Microsoft and Amazon aren't getting rewarded, if Nvidia can't get rewarded, I don't know what Rocket Lab's gonna have to do. Having said that, Sir Peter Beck says some good stuff about Neutron. Continues to say that profitability is on track. I mean, I could see the stock getting a pump. That's just not my base case. My base case is probably get ready for either some sideways or downside action. But it is down a lot already. So any good piece of news, maybe that takes it at least back into that 75, 80 range, which is, it's been toying from 70 to 75 for the past couple of weeks now. Microsoft 404, that's also up 1%. Rocket Lab is not linked to crypto as well. That is a good point. It doesn't have to deal with Bitcoin. HIMS is up 2.5. Tempest is flat. Cypher is down 1. Cadence is down 1. Corning is down because of Nvidia, unfortunately. I mean, all your AI infrastructure plays are taking a hit today. I'm surprised Nebis and Iran aren't down more. They're kind of flat. Broadcom Broadcom 5% right here. Goodness. It's just a poor market environment for anyone to report. Yeah, well, see, this is the fear that I think a lot of people had last night about Nvidia. It's like, look, the goal of the Nvidia earnings was to change market sentiment so that we could stop saying it's an ugly environment. Nvidia was supposed to say, hey, look, we're the best. We continue to be the best. We're going to blow your expectations away. We're going to lift all the companies up together. We're going to win. Everyone's going to be happy. And that's what Jensen tried to do. And he had the numbers to back him up, but it continues to be a poor environment. The street continues to be just a bit dicey on SaaS, on the labor market, on rate cuts, on the Fed chair, on Iran. I mean, this might have to do a lot more with Nvidia. Having said that, who knows? Maybe at 12 o'clock today, things reverse and Nvidia wakes up and it's $200. But it's like the most predictable dump you can imagine on Nvidia. Every hyperscaler dumped after earnings. The only one that didn't is Meta, and it took them a week, and their dump was just waiting in the future. They just needed to be patient. They were going to dump as well. But every single Mag 7 company took a hit. Paramount up 9%. Apple in talks with HDFC and ICICI, which is one of the biggest banks in India, to launch payment services by mid-2026. Okay. Looks like Apple is trying to grow their fintech business as well. 274. Apple actually a couple cents away from going green. So people leaving Nvidia and going to Apple here. Vertiv, I bet that's down today. Vertiv is down 5%. Yep. All of your high flyers are taking a hit. Morgan Stanley warned spending is surging far faster than revenue, with over $2 trillion expected from hyperscalers alone, driving a major concentration of investment with AI. However, they warned that the market could be sensitive to revenue growth given the amount that's being spent. The other thing is, even if CapEx slows down, remember, like Google's spending money on physical land, energy, etc. If they have all of that secured 2 years from now and CapEx slows down, but the percentage of that CapEx that's going to NVIDIA doesn't slow down, then that once again continues to fuel the broader AI cycle. So, maybe it's that's a different sort of nuanced way to think about the CapEx cycle slowing down in and of itself. Snowflake is up 8%. Snowflake had a good quarter. They had a very good quarter, 30% organic growth. They deserve to be getting a move right here. Remaining performance obligations, $9.7 billion. That's up 42% year over year. Yeah, Snowflake it's good to see this one make the move. But again, Snowflake's growing. The reason Salesforce is not up 10% is because they're growing, but they're not growing at the level the street wants. And again, they're a much bigger company than Snowflake, so they shouldn't be forced to grow that much. But if the street wants growth, they're getting it from Snowflake, but they're also getting it from NVIDIA. yet they don't necessarily care. Mercado Libre is getting interesting, guys, as a stock to just buy and hold and not really look at it. I mean, I read a couple things about it last night. It's not one of those names I would expect to rebound. Obviously, the stock costs $1,700 a share, so you're not going to go out there and buy 100 shares that easily. But I mean, I don't know, one share every couple months. Eventually, this will split. This one is looking like, this is the only company that has put up 30% revenue growth in the past 28 quarters. So just the sheer dominance of them in Latin America is interesting. The problem is tariffs have been an issue for them and margins have been an issue, which is also technically part of the reason why Amazon's getting hit as well. Obviously, I would buy Amazon over Mercado Libre just because of AWS and the AI narrative, but Melly is definitely interesting. Okay, what else do we have? Do we have any macro data today at 10 a.m.? We got 3 minutes. Let me know in the chat if anyone bought or sold anything in the last 27 minutes. We'll look at the heat map in a second. We got jobless claims. Nope, that's pretty much it. That should be most of the data that we're getting today. The heat map, look at that. Fat, ugly red for Nvidia right there. Yeah, in 2 minutes, let's see if Bitcoin dumps at 10 a.m. as well, or if we are now potentially done with this. Chime had a good earnings. That's why they're up 16%. The opposite of some of the other fintechs. As you can see, most of the market's green except Nvidia, Broadcom, Google, and then the healthcare names taking it on the chin today. Market's moving the way that benefits the least amount of people. I agree. And I mean, look, if everyone expected Nvidia to go up, yeah, the market's going the opposite direction. How is Chime up 16 and SoFi is dead? It's a great question. Having said that, Chime is a smaller market cap than SoFi. SoFi's at 24 billion, Chime's at 9. But I agree with you. The SoFi collapse this year has been like Robinhood. I can even understand. I guess you can blame crypto. There's actually a really simple story for it. SoFi, I don't know. Because you can't point to anything that happened in the quarter other than saying a bank shouldn't get the multiple SoFi was getting, which is okay. I mean, at that point, you get back to the fintech bank debate that we've had for years, which even I've evolved on. I understand why the market perceived it as a bank, which is why it didn't get the multiple that it probably should have over the past couple of years. But at the end of the day, they're growing. And if they're treated as a growth stock, then they should get a higher multiple. Broadcom still down 5. Palo Alto is up 3. Cybersecurity getting a little bit of momentum. That stock making a move. CrowdStrike is also up 4% as well. Is Walmart actually up 3%? Oh, no, Walmart's margins are 3%. Yeah, Walmart's margins are 3%. Nvidia's are 75. That's incredible. Yeah, SMH itself is down 3% right here. There you go. Now, the software names are all going up together. As you can see on the right-hand side of my screen, everything's green. Snowflake, Datadog, Palantir. Palantir actually making a nice move, 137. Cloudflare, CrowdStrike, Adobe, ServiceNow. Salesforce now finally breaking out. All right. If Salesforce can see 200 for the first time in a while, that would be incredible. Adobe needs around 270. ServiceNow needs about 115. You crack those levels, maybe we're seeing the real rotation back into semis. The question is, what are they selling? And honestly, they might be selling semis to buy SaaS. You might be seeing a rotation into SaaS from semis. SMH is down 3. IGV is up 3. And maybe it's not a direct correlation, but maybe Jensen pumped the SaaS name so much that market's all right, we'll sell Nvidia. We'll buy Salesforce. Talks between Iran and the United States in Geneva were halted due to Washington's insistence on a zero enrichment policy and the transfer of all uranium enriched 60% to the United States. Yeah, this is what I was talking about this morning. The way Rubio was talking about Iran last night made it seem like they are going to attack. And now you're seeing the headline right here. Talks in Geneva have halted due to Washington's insistence on zero enrichment. I mean, at this point, it's just theater. Like, Iran's not giving up their nuclear ambitions. It's not happening. It's just not happening. So I think if the United States thought going to Geneva would get them to come to the table, and they've been very explicit they're not going to do it. I feel like they'd rather go to a war versus give up their nuclear ambitions. Which begs the question then, does the United States think it's appropriate to go to a war? I don't know. Corey right there at 100. But, if this is what Trump wants to do, then this will obviously be a whole different ballgame we have to deal with in 2026. Yeah, we obviously did not get rid of their nuclear facilities back in May. I mean, we wouldn't be that concerned about them enriching uranium if we... I mean, the headline back then was we set them back 5 years. I mean, dude, we barely set them back 5 months at this point if we're getting ready to attack again. So, and again, what happened? Like, do we go for a regime change? Do we what are we doing here? It's just such a complicated issue that I don't know if the American base or the MAGA base is going to want to deal with as well, because, life's kind of unaffordable for a lot of people. And then we're spending money to go to war. Like, it's just going to bring up a lot of questions to navigate over the next coming months. Nvidia lows of the day continues to get dumped. BLS says gross job losses were 7.9 million in Q2 of 2025. Gross job gains were 7.6 million. So that's a negative 300,000 delta in 2Q 2025. That's from the BLS. Nabius right there, 107. That's still up 1%. Rocket Lab up 1.3. Zeta's actually making a nice move today. Again, Zeta's going up with SAS. Like, it's literally old SAS going up. There's no specific headline on them. So far right there, 1947. I mean, what do you guys think? Does Trump legit bring us into Iran? And again, Iran's always been saying they're going to have a nuclear weapon, and, they've hinted at it for so long, and they've never necessarily been able to develop the technology. Rubio, though, I'm going to try to get the exact quote. Rubio specifically said they are capable of coming up with ballistic missiles. And maybe he's fear-mongering, but... Oh, yeah, I have the video. Here it is. This is what Rubio said yesterday. I mean, this sounds like a guy who's ready to attack, based on what he's saying.
Oh, yeah, yes. I mean, well, I won't speculate as to how far away they are, but they are certainly trying to achieve, and this is not new, they're trying to achieve intercontinental ballistic missiles. For example, you've seen them try to launch satellites into space. You've seen them increasing the range of the missiles they have now. And clearly they are headed in the pathway to one day being able to develop weapons that could reach the continental U.S. They already possess weapons that could reach much of Europe already now, as we speak.
I mean, look, if you were trying to convince people to attack, you would try to make the argument that we should be afraid of them attacking us. So I don't know. That definitely complicates stocks this year. I mean, look, if it's a military operation like it was last year and it's one and done, then I think stocks brush off. If it's legit boots on the ground, we're going into war, which I want to think Trump's not going to do that. But if it is, it's a different ballgame. Nvidia right there, 188. Chime still up 14% as well. Let's see if we have any other pieces of data coming out here. Nvidia still dumping. Wow, Cantor Fitzgerald says Nvidia remains a top pick, arguing the stock is undervalued. We believe Nvidia is getting no respect despite their blowout performance. Dude, even the sell side is coming out and they're like, yeah, the market just doesn't like this stock, but the performance justifies it. VIX just pumped, did we? DoorDash is up. Redwire is up. Redwire had earnings today, right? VIX is up 5%. VIX just got a move. Did Redwire have earnings, or is it after the bell? Redwire. Nope, they did have earnings. Looks like a double beat. Yeah. No, EPS missed. EPS missed. Okay. EPS missed by about 40 cents. Revenue beat by about 5%. Redwire is up 10%. All right, Street seemed to like the revenue beat, at least. VIX is going to pump. The largest stock in the market is down over 3%. Yeah, that's fair. That's a easier. Honestly, dude, being just long the VIX all year has probably paid so much money. I mean, even last year, as long as you got out in April, being long VIX definitely helped. Nvidia right there, 188. Let's see if it breaks 188. Drink the instant coffee now. It's cold now. I can't drink it. That's the worst thing. I'm talking so much. I can't drink this thing. I don't know how you guys drink cold coffee. Like, I can drink like a cold latte, but cold coffee is just weird. I feel like coffee is meant to drink hot. I don't think I can easily drink cold coffee. All right, Bitcoin, where are we at on that? Not really a dump. It's barely down to 0.5%. So we'll see if this one actually gets. I mean, usually it would be down $3,000 by now. So it's staying kind of chill. You can't really be long VIX unless you want theta decay. That's fair. The people that trade VIX futures, or at least options on the VIX, index options, being able to time the weekly moves on it are also really important, especially between certain events. I guess NVIDIA was one of the biggest events this week for it. Jane Street has moved on to NVIDIA. One institution wouldn't have the power to do that. Well, that's what the lawsuit is alleging. The lawsuit is alleging that Jane Street basically profited something like $40 billion off the idea of A, manipulating Terraform, and then B, Bitcoin and the broader crypto markets in general. I mean, the crypto market cap grew by like 4% yesterday, just off the idea that potentially Jane Street's done doing this. Again, Jane Street is not like your typical hedge fund. They're not like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. They are a very sophisticated trading desk that has enough power to make sure they can print on both sides of the trade. And as a result, I think that's why you're seeing some more momentum. By the way, Hillary Clinton's testifying in front of Congress today. It's not going to be open to the public. Bill Clinton's going to speak to Congress on Friday, not open to the public. For those that missed the news about Bill Gates, he admitted to an affair with 2 Russian women 3 days ago to the Wall Street Journal. So he did officially admit that he had an affair. I wonder if you get any level of admission from the Clintons here. Apple right there, 273. Nvidia at 180. Why isn't it public? That's a good question. I don't know why it's not public. I think this comes down to Clinton letting it be public. They're literally testifying from not even in DC, from a different spot near them. You'll get some statements afterwards. I'm looking at the Reuters live stream, but it's not going to be live. I mean, it's not going to be live to the public. Where is NVIDIA? Are we still down? NVIDIA is still down. 188.54. Chime is up 14. I mean, where's the S&P throughout all this? Are we still at 690? We're barely at 690, dude. There you go, down 0.5% on the S&P. This could turn pretty ugly quickly if NVIDIA falls another couple bucks. Pure Storage got hit bad, down 15%. This is another name that people kind of put in the memory basket to an extent. South Korea, I think, was up last night, up another 1% right here. Netflix, at least, getting a move. Almost 85. Almost 85. Let's listen to Mike Wilson. He's one of my favorite analysts from Morgan Stanley. Let's see what he's thinking about this market.
To see this broadening out, but there's many things going on just besides AI, right? This early cycle kind of emerging from a rolling recession. That's a big deal. And there's a lot of money moving into these cyclical areas like energy. Why is energy working all of a sudden? Because it's a group that's been left for dead, hasn't done anything for years. Same thing with manufacturing and industrial stocks. But I want to go back to last fall, okay? Because that's really when this correction started at the index level, right? The index kind of peaked in October, and we thought that was related more to kind of liquidity constraints, which the Fed did address. You know, they ended QT early and things like that. But if you look at the dispersion under the surface right now, I mean, the market has basically crashed under the surface, meaning the spread between the top 50 stocks and the bottom 50 stocks year to date, okay, is 68%. Think about that spread. That's the biggest spread we've seen in 20 years. I mean, by a wide margin, worse than 2009 when you were having the GFC crisis, okay? So what is that telling us? It's telling us that the market is adjusting internally for these concerns. So that, to me, like, I think the correction at the stock level is probably 70 to 80% done. The question we have to ask ourselves is, does the index now need to catch down?
Just lost 188, 187 on Nvidia. She's now in free fall.
To complete the correction? And I think the answer is maybe. You know, that's kind of the next 6 weeks. I think there is a risk for the index to catch down. But it's a correction, Joe. It's not like the beginning of the bear market.
So there was a stealth recession, a rolling recession, and a stealth correction in the stock market, in your view, a rolling correction.
Well, the market is doing what it always does.
The averages, you didn't see it.
Yeah.
You saw it under the surface. But now you're a little bit more negative on the overall averages.
I'm just saying you need to be aware that the market under the surface has been, in other words, volatility at the index level has been very, very low. But volatility at the stock level is extremely high. Okay. So there's a signal in that. Just don't ignore that. And by the way, the stocks that have been pounded, that's where you should be looking now. Okay, that's where the opportunity is. It's not in the momentum leaders. It's in the momentum laggards at this point. That's what investing is all about. And it's not every stock, by the way, that's been beaten up. Some deserve to be beaten up.
You've been talking about stocks that will respond to a strengthening economy for a while. Is it strengthening? You saw the GDP number.
Yeah.
Is the labor market strengthening? Can it strengthen with AI? Not the concern about the stock market, but AI displacing workers. Is it going to be our normal strong economic cycle that we've seen, or is it different? It seems like it might not be as easy to. Is that what you're forecasting? Strong GDP? No.
I mean, GDP. It's unequivocal. The economy is strengthening. Okay. Now the fourth quarter GDP numbers are weaker because of the shutdown.
So how much weaker?
Probably 1 to 2%. I mean, significant.
So it could have been a 3% quarter.
Oh, easily, and it could have been even close to 4. I mean, productivity is running north of 4. You know, I mean, 4 to 5%. So we're definitely seeing a capex boom, and it's not just AI. It's
seeing a capex boom.
Absolutely.
Will that translate to manufacturing jobs too eventually?
Well, it is. I mean, we're seeing reshoring, and we're seeing old factories being.
These are all the talking points that we're hearing from Democrats for November that are going to take back the House and possibly the Senate. So it's November in your view?
Well, my view is it's in process. The reason why stocks did so well last year, stocks anticipate this, right? Stocks are living the future. And the stocks are telling you that, yes, the economy is improving and it's broadening out at the same time. That's why we've seen this rotation going on under the surface.
We've been told in a K-shaped economy, stocks don't matter.
Well,
because rich people have them. That's it. But
I mean, think about this. The K-shaped economy is also rebalancing to some degree, something we've discussed, right? Which is that immigration restrictions theoretically help the sort of middle income, lower income jobs. So those are more blue collar, more physical type labor. And if you think about, where we're short in that regard, and then now you have a pressure on the wages at the upper end, the white collar jobs. That's a rebalancing. That is happening. It's very disruptive. That's why there's so much volatility under the surface. This is not smooth. Like what's going on is once in a generation type disruption. So, but that doesn't mean it has to end in a bearish outcome. It can be quite positive for certain parts of the economy.
So, what are you worried about then in terms of is it too strong for the Fed's liking in terms of?
All right. So essentially Mike Wilson making the argument that we've already had a bit of a correction, and now the beat up names that are continuing to get beat up. Wow, Nvidia, we touched below 187. Those are the names to buy. The index has been propped up by the rotation of different sectors, which obviously has been kind of the core argument that we've seen over the past 2 months, that financials, healthcare, et cetera, has been held up. But growth names, once again, continue getting crushed even after the growth. Nvidia down 5%. That is a $125 billion market cap erasure that you're seeing in the past 30 minutes. SPY, are we at 687? Oh my, that happened quick. We were at 690 literally 5 minutes ago. VIX has got to be up at least 7 or 8%. The VIX is, what do we got? VIX is, it was up 5. VIX is now up 9%. All right, volatility. She's back. She is back. S&P 687, Nvidia just below 187. It's almost exactly like November. Nvidia pumped a lot harder on November, though, and then at 11 a.m. it dumped. In this case, it pumped for like 10 minutes after the earnings, and now it's opening with a dump. Pure Storage down 16. Korea's going down. The SaaS names, though, are holding. SaaS names are holding. Maybe there is some real... I mean, the fact that Zeta is still holding up 4% while Nvidia's crashing means that maybe there is a bit of rotation happening. Palantir, though, is getting some red candles. Salesforce up 3%. Tesla going down. No tweet by Trump. Oh, we do have a headline here. House Democrats seek Iran war powers resolution by next week. The Dems are trying to get involved to not let Trump unilaterally strike, which probably is also scaring the market because they think that, you know, Trump is thinking of striking more aggressively. Iran state media says we won't leave enriched uranium to leave. We won't allow enriched uranium to leave the country. Quote from Iranian state media. We kind of already knew about that, but they continue to hold on to that argument. Wow, Nvidia. I mean, 185 is 15 cents away. Nubank down 8%. Oh my gosh. This is ugly. This is ugly. CrowdStrike still up 5, but falling. SoFi goes red. At least 1,800 companies are seeking tariff-related relief after Supreme Court decision with an estimated $130 billion owed per the Wall Street Journal. Wow. All right, so now Trump has to deal with multiple lawsuits as well on tariffs. Yeah, multiple compression continuing here. It's really not that great for the market to see Nvidia not going to pump on those results. Having said that, I mean, if you're, you know, playing the volatility of it, then you're printing on the options, at least on the sell side. And if you wanted cheaper prices on Nvidia, you're getting to pay a lot less for a lot more growth. But this feels less like an Nvidia thing and more like a Mac. I mean, I want to say it's more about these Iran headlines. Maybe it's not. But it is incredible to see this type of reaction right here on Nvidia. Nvidia down 5% on the day. I think the other thing that I heard yesterday that was also really important, yeah, TSM down 4%, is who's the next incremental buyer for Nvidia? Retail has owned the stock for so long. Institutions, although it's one of the more under-owned Mag 7s, you know, they still own 75% of Nvidia. Like, who's the next person to buy at a $4.5 trillion market cap to get this eventually to an $8 trillion market cap? And those buyers are more interested in Samsung and SK Hynix or Netflix, right? They're just interested in different opportunities that more reasonably seem like they can go up. S&P down almost a full percent right here. Grab, is that green today? Grab is green slightly. Apple also about to go green. Actually, no. Apple's going red. Nope. Apple's down almost 1%. Celsius lost a decent chunk of the pump, but still up 11%. Crypto falling on war news. Worst alternative to gold ever. Oh, you're right. I don't know if this 10 a.m. slam on crypto is Jane Street today. I think it might actually be these Iranian headlines. Oh, by the way, Meta gave $200 million to this AI research dude called Ruo Ming Pang. They took him from Apple. They gave him $200 million. Yesterday, he left for OpenAI. So some of these expensive hires not really going the way Zucks wants it to go, as they're leaving to different places. Meta now is red. ASML, this was up 5% yesterday. This is down 6% today. Nvidia 185. She's here. VIX is up 13%. VIX is up 13%, folks. I guess this is what we're dealing with here. S&P now. Wow, this is a little aggressive, though. S&P just went from down 0.2 to 0.4 to 0.7 to 1.1. Literally within 15 minutes. I mean, you would think there's a deeper headline right here. But maybe it's just the Iran stuff. I'm trying to see if there's something else here. Not seeing anything too crazy. Let's see if we have any coverage on this Iran stuff. The velocity of the downside here is, again, pretty aggressive. Nope. I'm not seeing any major coverage. NASDAQ down almost 2. Nvidia, they're just killing her. They're not even giving her a chance. They're not even giving her a chance. S&P just keeps falling. Qs are down 2 again. Bitcoin actually taking a pretty decent down. It's a $1,700 candle on Bitcoin since the morning. How the hell is IONQ still up 18%? Aren't markets supposed to be efficient? Like, really? IONQ's up 19%. And Nvidia's down. Oh, that's a good point. Julian, today is the first day of Mercury retrograde. The last 3 Mercury retrogrades, we had some market volatility. So for my astrology people out there, Mercury retrograde is when things change. And maybe we're seeing a change right here. Broadcom down 7. Honest at the same time is up 20. This is kind of funny. Kind of funny. It's a rotational drop, not a market sell-off. Well, the fact that SAS is holding on, yeah, I agree with you. And semis in general getting wrecked today. So that, wow, SMH down 4%. That does feel like the transition is to IGV. It's just a very aggressive dump on semis. Nvidia 185. We need the new bell. See, we can stop making the instant coffee every morning because it's not what's keeping the market green. Although the coffee is good. The coffee is very good. What about Google? Yeah, where did Googs? Ew, Googs down 3. Dude, this feels so fake and so random. Like, we got Burry's posts. What is he saying? Michael Burry sees Nvidia's purchase commitment parallel to Cisco at .com bubble top. I mean, Michael Burry must be loving this, and this would be the perfect time for him to release a new article to capitalize on the downside because everyone will want to know why Nvidia is down. Oh, he already did. Brand new article. I can't see everything in this article, but from the preview I'm seeing, it looks like he's going deep into the 10K and once again making an argument around purchase obligations being higher. Purchase obligations show 95.2 billion, up from 16 billion at the same time last year. This is because TSMC demanded longer-term contracts and cash as it had to build out custom semiconductor fabrication. That has not been the normal course of business until recently. It has become a testament to the extremely complex monsters NVIDIA's chips have become. To be clear, this is from Burry, structural to the new trajectory of product development and not temporary. So basically he's saying purchase obligations will continue to go higher. Google now down 3, which, I haven't read through the entire article about what his point is, but it looks like he thinks TSMC is basically trying to squeeze as much juice as they can out of NVIDIA, and NVIDIA is complying for it for the sake of being able to build their chips. Having said that, if they're able to sell their chips, the difference with Cisco is at one point people stopped buying. That's kind of the obvious reason that Nvidia would increase those purchase obligations. Nvidia right there getting a small bounce off 188.50 or 185.50. 185.50. I don't know. Let's see. Is that enough pain for today? Is that enough pain for today? Or are we going lower? Or are we going lower? 186.30. If we get a bounce back to 188, maybe that would have been the at least intraday bottom. Yeah, VIX just went down as well. All right, I'm nibbling. I'm doing 25 shares. 186.20. 186.20. Small nibble. We're going to just add to the bag. Just going to add to the bag, by the way. Zero battery, as always. Why is my phone never charged? Can someone come up with something that just keeps your phone charged forever? Like, I don't even know how I bought these shares. Phone probably should have been debit. Do you guys know, when I woke up in the morning, my Mac did some it was like 5 minutes before I went live. It was like, you have to like reboot your Mac from Time Machine or whatever. And I was like, what? Why do I have to reboot my Mac? And then I turned it off and on. And then thankfully it just loaded up normally. I was like, dude, I have to go live in 5 minutes. I can't They were like, you have to re-download Mac OS Sequoia. I was like, I don't have time to re-upload Mac OS Sequoia. I need to go live. So thankfully, it was like at 8:43 it reloaded. I was like, that would have been ugly. You could literally have your iPhone charging next to you. Yes, but when your iPhone doesn't have battery, it reminds you that life is meant to be lived on the edge. That's why I don't wear a case on my iPhone either. You take risks. You live on the edge. So the lack of battery actually, it inspires the thrill of going for it. EOSC is down 40. Zeta's down 2. Zeta's not holding on to the gains. Rocket Lab also green, but not holding out. My goodness, are we going below 300 on Broadcom? 7% down right here. Goodness, this is just ugly today. Absolutely freaking ugly. Okay, actually, I'm going to charge my phone right now. Let me... the other reason I don't charge my phone is because I'm always charging with the iPad. The iPad loses battery way quicker than the phone does. All right, the phone is charging. We're good to go. And I need the iPad to see the chat. But Broadcom right here down 7. That's just disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. NASDAQ down 400 points. Oh, yeah, the Amazon OpenAI headline was big. So this is the headline. Amazon's $50 billion investment in OpenAI comes with conditions. Most of the funding depends on achieving AGI or going public. So the stipulation that apparently Amazon is putting into their contract with OpenAI is that we're going to give you $50 billion, but we're going to give you some right now. The rest we're going to give you later, and we give it to you if contingent on either you go public or Nvidia continue to tank, or you achieve AGI. Kind of a weird thing for Amazon to say, but I think they want to do the deal because they know OpenAI is going to buy a lot of compute from them. So, they'd be willing to keep pumping up the name. When they go public, though, and they're worth $1 trillion, that's kind of questionable that Amazon wants to invest when they go public, because then they're going to have to be buying stock at a pretty aggressive level versus buying right now. But I guess that's the argument. Nebius right there, down 2%. Sprouts is the new Nvidia. Sprouts Farmer Market up 3%. Nvidia down 5%. Wow, Nubank down 9%. Meta also reversed. Yup, 660 to 650. There she goes, Nvidia. Let's see. Are we going below 185? 5% down today. That is $217 billion in market cap erased. I guess this is what we're dealing with. Someone just bought S&P 800 calls for September 2027, looking at the option flow. They bought 21.4 million of it. And then they bought another SPY 820 calls for March of 2027 for 17 million. Almost 40 million spent on SPY calls, 800 of March of next year. So you do have some bulls that are coming out there today. Again, these are the days where you buy calls, right? You want the market to be down, so the premiums go down. Netflix 83.37. It could also be a hedge as well. I mean, it could also just be someone trying to hedge their short position with some level of upside. Adobe losing a lot of the pump. Wow, that is, I mean, what a move on the world's largest company. And you can't even say it looks like it doesn't want to go lower. Like, this chart is disgusting. I mean, it feels like you would need either a VIX collapse or like some type of sentiment moving event. It's about to lose 185 right here. 185.20 on Nvidia. Gold and silver still up. Gold and silver. Nope. Gold and silver both go down. Silver is down 5. SLV is down 3. How about copper? Copper is down 4. Gold again is down. Meta's down. Tesla also looks very ugly. Tesla 406 down 2.3. It feels like 2022 again. The price action feels like 2022. The earnings growth does not, because in 2022, you were not getting 80% reacceleration guides by the largest company on the planet. Having said that, yes, price action wise, absolutely. It does feel like that. Real, thanks for the super chat. After watching me, Kevin's NVIDIA cash flow breakdown, I'm curious if any balance sheet details add context beyond the triple beat. Any thoughts? I have not watched the breakdown. However, I think some of the concerns that people were having on X yesterday, inventory increasing, purchase order increasing. I mean, these were a lot of the same concerns they had last time. NVIDIA, are we breaking 185? There you go. Broke 185, 184.90. 132 million shares of volume on this as well. 184.74 NVIDIA. Look, I think those concerns deserve to be talked about, but the implication of those concerns a lot of times are it's a fraud, or the accounts receivable are too high, or they're collecting revenue that they haven't even, or they're booking revenue they haven't even collected, yada, yada. Like, it goes into this whole Jensen's cooking the book argument, which I just trust NVIDIA's finance team over a lot of other people. So I don't think there's a red flag in the earnings. I think people are going to want to make a red flag based on the price action. S&P down 1.2. I think this is the market getting exhausted with the AI trade and once again thinking that, okay, CapEx is good this year, but what about next year? I mean, this is why the memory stocks trade at a depressed PE, even though they've grown so much, because once again, the market's like, well, what if, so they just apply that same logic to semiconductors more broadly, even though you would think NVIDIA would, push back against that narrative, but that's what they're saying. Yeah, and you have no China sales. That was in that guidance as well. EOSE got hit badly today. They missed on EPS by like 40%. That's why that stock is taking a hit. Not to mention the Iran headlines again. Senate Majority Leader Thune just said if U.S. takes action on Iran, the goal should be regime change. Wow. Seriously? I mean, if you have... Wow, yeah. Senate Majority Leader Thune, if U.S. takes action on Iran, goal should be regime change. If we're going to have people in Congress start advocating for regime change, we got bigger issues to worry about than Nvidia, to be honest. I mean, that's not going to be pretty. Would this mean boots on the ground? Yeah. I mean, we can't change the regime. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think if we were going for a full-on getting rid of the Ayatollah, inserting someone new, you have to have boots on the ground. Like, there's good levels of internal revolt inside of Iran by the people that obviously want to overthrow and, potentially institute something that's more democratic. But I don't think if you just get rid of the leaders that they'll just magically do it. I think you have to have boots on the ground in a meaningful way. Otherwise, it just creates a power vacuum. We saw this in Iraq. So it's just crazy because, Trump's the guy who's America first. He's kind of the guy who didn't want to get into these wars. And by the way, the Senate Majority Leader is not just saying that to say that. They're saying that because that's the opinion of the majority of the Senate, the Republican Party, which is led by Trump. If they went against what Trump would be saying, then, you'd have a different question. But they're saying that strategically right now. I don't know. Maybe you could change regimes without actually having boots on the ground. But man, I think it would definitely get us into a longer situation. VG right there, that's up 2.6. 2.6. Let me see if we're getting any coverage on this sell-off. What are we talking about here? Let's get a little bit of coverage on Nvidia, and then we'll keep going from there.
We've been on your network, and we're obviously seeing a dead cat bounce right now, and that's understandable because everybody had the same trades on for the near term. But I think that if you really think about it, he's saying the tools won't go away, like Cadence and Synopsys tools won't go away. But if you thread the needle on what he's saying software moves to tokens, okay? Software moving to tokens means we're moving to a consumption model, not a seat model. Are you telling me that all these SaaS guys are going to make that transition to consumption and outcomes without missing a few quarters? Are you kidding me? So this is a really tough transition for the SaaS guys as the economics go to consumption that's going up and to the right and towards the semis guys. But,
Finally,
but
Ben,
maybe things are oversold near term.
Yeah, we'll talk some memory next time, and maybe we get something out of GTC that moves some of them.
To his point, he's obviously a bit more bearish on the semis. I was listening to the Salesforce call yesterday. I don't think he had the best response, Benioff, to the argument about being commoditized and Salesforce creating or Anthropic creating their own CRM. Benioff essentially just said that we're all going to work together, which is okay, but it wasn't like super convincing. He even admitted that some of these companies might come up with their own stuff, but right now I'm living in the present, not the future. And given what I'm seeing right now, that's not happening, which is a fair point. This is the exact quote that Benioff had here to kind of push back against that argument.
In a way that is compliant, that is secure, that is available, that is scalable, that is reliable, that is able to operate in hand in hand. So if you go to help.salesforce.com today and you want to get help from Salesforce, you know that you're going to be able to automatically connect to our contact center as well. That's incredible. We couldn't do that just a couple years ago, as you know. So that's the current way we're deploying. Well, could there be other ways that we deploy? It's definitely possible. The future, could have many different forms, but we can see right now what we're going to sell this year to our customers. We have a lot to sell and a lot to do.
Basically, he was like, look, right now, Anthropic's not building a new CRM. And so we're going to keep selling, but maybe it doesn't answer the question of eventually when they do. Granted, Jensen's response about them working together, that's a probably more nuanced, better explanation of how these agents will create more tokens for these SaaS companies. Little bounce on Nvidia from 184 to 186. VIX is starting to drop a little bit. Maybe that 184 low puts in the low for the day. Zeta still holding 2%. Rocket Lab actually going up 1%. Palantir still holding green. Salesforce, nice 3% move. Path's up 7. Lulu's up 2. Sezzle's still up 30. Nutanix, I don't know why AMD invested $150 million in Nutanix, but they did. That stock was up 15. Now it's up 4. HIMS slightly green. BMNR is down a little bit. RSP, equal weight S&P, that's green, which is good to see. Wix, I don't know if they had earnings today. Did they? That's up 9%. I got hit badly yesterday. Wix launches AI integration with Google. That's the headline. AI integration with Google. Okay, 9%. Well, that's great. Random question. Does the market know that practically every enterprise in the Western world has been using unlimited Frontier tokens since January of this year? I mean, if they did, I wonder if the SaaS names would be hit as bad as they're hit. But see, even these little bounces, right? Like, can you even kind of think there's something there? Uber's up 4%. Let's see if we can get Nvidia back up to like, I don't know, 188 from here would be nice to see. Obviously 190 would be where it was yesterday. Nubank still down 9. UBS says it's quote unquote hard to see why Nvidia stock remains flat despite exceptional fundamentals. Analysts highlighted stronger than expected revenue guidance, surging demand, and backlog extending 2027. I mean, I think the big guys are just as confused as all of us. Will he be covering Rocket Lab today? Yes. So I won't be watching the call. We'll have Chris on for Macro Thursday. I think Matt might be covering the call. So for those that want to listen to it, you go to his channel. But Rocket Lab, SoundHound, Dell, CoreWeave, Duolingo, SMR, Intuit, MP, Square, Marathon, Monster, Wolf, Zscaler, Rocket Mortgages, Coupang, Autodesk. We got a lot of companies today that we will go through. And then MP, yeah, MP Materials today as well. Yeah, we have 2 days left of February. Well, 3 days, including today. So we are coming to the end pretty soon. Oh, I think we're getting the Clinton. No, this is the Republican who's in charge of the House Foresight Committee commenting on the Clinton and Clinton testifying stuff today. Let me see if I can pull up the exact thing right here. Oh, they just had them live. I missed it. They just had them live. We could at least get some commentary on what they were going to say. All right, so we'll try to get that in a second, but they were just talking about the Clintons testifying here. Let's get a little bit more coverage here, and we'll keep on from there.
Or so of a 3 handle. Haven't done that so far this year, guys.
So it's turning out, I'm hearing via text and email, it's a very bad day, Mike, for hedge funds, as you might imagine. You made this point sort of at the top of the show in terms of, but like the TMT momentum pair is down 6%. Obviously, AI is down. AI basket, software up.
Yeah.
And so the shorts are running on a lot of these hedge funds, the software versus semis, which you pointed out.
It's a 6.5 percentage point spread.
That
today.
hurts. That hurts.
So obviously it shows you they're kind of hunting for the crowded position.
I'm hearing worst hedge fund day of the year, which again, you're short right now, but
and sometimes what that means is it just takes, you got a quick kind of flush. And, you have to see if people just sort of reduce risk across the board. It does go in line with the 10-year yield coming in a little bit. Got a little bit of a bounce in crude as well. It's still tame in terms of the overall price change, but around 10 a.m., some kind of, questions, headlines around Iran and maybe how these things are going. But, I would say in general, it's still one of these days where the average stock is hanging in there while the big market cap names start to weigh on the indexes. The equal weight S&P, is better than flat at the.
Okay, here's the statement by Comer.
Here today, just want to go back on a timeline of how we got here. Several months ago, during a subcommittee hearing of oversight, there was a motion made by a Democrat member, Summer Lee, to subpoena the certain documents Then the motion was amended by Scott Perry to include subpoenas for various names. I think there were 8 names originally, including Bill and Hillary Clinton. Everyone that was included in that subpoena has already either been interviewed by the Oversight Committee or sent in a statement that they had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of the investigation, except the Clintons. We worked for 6 months to get the Clintons to come in, and then they acted like they were going to come in, and then they didn't show up. And obviously we moved to hold the Clintons in contempt. And I think one thing that surprised the Clintons, they assumed the Democrats on the committee would vote in a partisan manner and not vote to hold the Clintons in contempt. And what they learned was a majority of the Democrats on the committee either voted to hold the Clintons in contempt or voted present. And I think that's a statement that this investigation is serious. It is a bipartisan investigation. The American people have a lot of questions. To my knowledge, the Clintons haven't answered very many, if any, questions about their knowledge or involvement with Epstein and Maxwell. Again, no one's accusing at this moment the Clintons of any wrongdoing. They're going to have due process, but we have a lot of questions. And the purpose of the whole investigation is to try to understand many things about Epstein. How did he accumulate so much wealth? How was he able to surround himself with some of the most powerful men in the world? Was he an asset for our government or any other government? These are the questions that we're going to ask over.
All right. I guess hopefully they'll get some deeper answers from Bill and Hillary today. Again, it will not be live streamed for everybody. It will not be public. NVIDIA right there, little bounce, but they will be testifying today. All right, what else do we got? EOSC is still getting hit hard. We're not getting any more macro data. I think, again, the algos are really controlling price action here. You saw on CNBC them arguing that hedge funds are having one of their worst days of the year. Yeah, because there's not a lot of hedge funds that are short NVIDIA. I mean, you've obviously got short float, but most funds are either long or they're delta neutral, or they're just not in it. But it's kind of like Tesla. I mean, like, you have shorts on Tesla, but it's not like 2018 where like Tesla had 50% short float. Now it's like less than 2%. So it's not like hedge funds make a ton of money if NVIDIA goes down. In fact, I think they lose more money because the whole bucket of AI stocks fall. The S&P falls. And that ends up being worse. S&P, a little rebound as well, 684 to 687. 684 to 687. Fermi is up. That's correct. Let's see if we can get closer to 190 here. That would be a real bounce. Meta at 651. Broadcom down 7 is kind of crazy, but I mean, this was at 295 3 weeks ago. We did get some really ugly prices that Thursday. EOSC still down. I mean, this is a stock, if you're on X, it has been talked about a lot. So you're going to probably see a lot of coverage on this name. I mean, this would be the time, I think, to at least dive deeper now that it's down 50% here. Especially if there is, a legit thesis. One bad quarter is okay. NVIDIA's had bad quarters in the past. But if they can reverse that trend, then maybe that's actually a good discount here. It's just in this market, you can't really have a bad quarter. South Korea just went green. Netflix 83.4. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I had a significant NVIDIA short. Yeah, that's the other. Because if NVIDIA moves, then the whole market moves. And then your short really blows up, right? It's not like, I mean, it's just not as likely if NVIDIA makes a re-rating type of a move for it to come back down. If it goes up 1 or 2%, yeah, it could then dump. But if NVIDIA were to hit 220, 225 last night, I mean, for it to dump all the way back to 180 would just be a bit harder. And then you get squeezed. So it makes sense why their short float is not that massive. Salesforce, that's actually up 4%. Salesforce making a better move. Are you in memory? No, but honestly, I have been doing a lot more research on memory. Do you guys know the Micron chips? Like, has anyone ever seen what a Micron memory chip looks like on top of a Blackwell? Like, it's actually crazy how small these things are, but still how much they I mean, the level of technology they put in to get these chips to fit with NVIDIA, it's just incredible. So I was doing a little bit of research on Micron last night and just looking through kind of how they built what they built. It's just, once again, it comes down to this argument that they are a bit more susceptible to a cyclical shock. Now, granted, see, the pushback against what I'm saying is that if NVIDIA is going to grow at $80 billion run rates now, that's going to be the lowest amount of revenue they do every quarter for the next, presumably, couple of years. They're going to need a lot of memory. And so Micron right here down 5%. Feels inevitable that that's going higher. Are you an Amcor? Yes. But again, Amcor hasn't run like Micron. You could say Amcor potentially is cyclical. Micron's up, dude. Micron was at $80. It's at $430. So there's a little bit of momentum that comes in here. Also, Micron's market cap is $470 billion. Amcor is at $12 billion. You know, to see Amcor go from 12 to 24, even 12 to 20 is not crazy. And I think most of us started buying it closer when it was at $7 billion. Micron, a double here, is $1 trillion company. Is a memory company going to be worth $1 trillion? I guess is the question. Marvell, that's green as well. Yep. Oh, actually, no, that's red. Rock Lab officially went green. Let me see if I can find this memory video I was looking at last night. It was just fascinating seeing this. Oh, here it is. Here it is. This thing is crazy. All right, so take a look at this. This is from last year.
We got hands-on with NVIDIA's AI accelerator, the H100. But this little one is pretty important too. It's Micron's HBM3E, a high bandwidth memory chip used to power...
That's how small it is, bro. That's what is causing the supply shortage that's leading to everyone buying up memory. That little thing right there.
AI workloads. The tech's revolutionary for the industry because it allows for high-speed data transfers and more capacity, both bottlenecks in developing AI. Producing the chips is complex, but the payoff is great for Micron, Samsung, and other players. The Micron chip's smaller and thinner than a penny. It's key to training LLMs for generative AI. Basically, the more data you can serve up more quickly, the better the model gets. There are 8 layers of DRAM or memory stacked on top of each other. Each layer is 3 gigabytes, so together you get 24 gigabytes.
The reason that Micron's HBM3E or high bandwidth memory is important is that in the AI context, it solves for a problem called the memory wall.
To train the LLMs behind ChatGPT, for example, you need to be able to process a large amount of data very quickly. As AI workloads increase and Nvidia releases new higher performance AI chips like Blackwell, the memory demands also increase. This year, Micron also released a higher capacity chip that stacks 12 layers of DRAM, so 36 gigabytes of memory. The two look identical when placed side by side. Each layer is made thinner to provide more memory without taking up more physical space.
I thought it was incredible, dude. Actually, looking at the rate of innovation Micron needs, it's quite incredible, and they're sold out, at least for the next year and a half. Rocket Lab getting a bid, S&P trying to get a bid, Nvidia, we need 187, Grabs up 2, Honest up 20. We're Spy almost up. Hoodie actually getting some love, 78.54. Imagine if NVIDIA Blackwell could be that small. It would cut CapEx by a ton. That's true. You wouldn't need that much space in these data centers. Dude, how is Paramount up 10%? They didn't even have a good quarter. And they're about to spend $100 billion on Game of Thrones. Like, the market is crazy. Let's sell off NVIDIA. Let's long IONQ, Honest, and Paramount. Ukraine president said We are closely monitoring developments around Iran and the actions of the regime that supports Russia's war and supplied Russia with drones for terror against Ukrainians. Okay, so Zelensky also not the happiest with Iran. My circle calls are up 500%. Congrats. Congrats, congrats. What date were those calls? Those had to be out a couple months, right? There's no way those leaps are up 500%. Maybe a stock moves up 37. Could the leaps be up? Well, if they're like 27 leaps, yeah, I think they could be up 5x. But I feel like they're probably closer to expiration. We do like this market's like it's just selective, right? Like imagine you like went heavy in circle leaps that expire, I don't know, in a month, and you're up 5x. Like that's your year. You won for the year. Boom, 500%. Now, if it was a relatively small position, then it's not going to make the biggest dent. But some of people's performance this year could be dictated off one or two moves, and then they could kind of just sit back because it's really hard to kind of continue playing the game when you have all these ups and downs. But then again, if Circle tanked 30%, you know, it's hard to figure out which stock on earnings in particular actually makes the move. I mean, especially when you see this Nvidia price action. TSM right there down 4 right there. They're 1 month out. Well, there you go. $65 March 15th. Yep. That'll do it for you. 5x. Can you imagine if Nvidia had posted terrible guidance? It would have been so ugly. And that's the sad thing about the price action is like they did their job. They did what they had to do, and still the market was not ready to give them any love. That's why I no longer play earnings. Too unpredictable. Yeah. I think about all the people that bought Nvidia right before earnings yesterday at 197, thinking it's a sure lock for it to get above 200. Then they put up the results. They're like, it has to be above 200. And now it's down. Got some tariff headlines. This is from Politico. The Trump administration officials are scrambling to devise legal strategies that could allow the president to retain billions in tariff revenue that the Supreme Court rule was unlawfully collected. Early ideas are: 1, claim the tariff payments are legal under a revamped set of duties that the administration is now preparing under different legal authorities. Number 2, allow companies to jump to the front of what is expected to be a lengthy queue for refunds if they agree to forfeit some of the money to the government. Wow. What a freaking mess, dude. Absolute mess. I feel like it'd be easier to just give the money back and move on. I mean, the worst part about this is that this could encompass the next, forget 5 months, 5 years of court cases, and it could just be a cloud over the admin going into the midterms. Get Congress to pass a bill that says the president can negotiate using tariffs. That would have been the easier route. It's just that also would have been the harder route to actually get those Congress people to vote on it. I mean, I wonder if he tried to go through Congress in 2025, if he actually would have got a majority. You know, it would have been, you know, if he had tried to go through Congress and then Congress didn't work and then he went through executive action, I think a lot more people would have had sympathy for it, because they would have been like, hey, the Democrats, they just don't want to do anything. They want any negotiation, so I have to use my executive. But he didn't go through Congress at all. He just assumed Congress would strike it down, which, you know, maybe they would have. And it went right through the executive orders. I don't know. And but, you know, there are a lot of authorities within these different sections that gives the president unilateral power to institute tariffs. It's just not IEEPA. And that's the part that kind of messes all this up. We have some more quotes from the Clinton thing. Let me pull this up.
That Republicans might have, that we might have. Look, if she has any information that could be helpful to the investigation, we want to hear that. And so we're going to find out here. And we'll report back with actually being asked. But broadly speaking, anyone that has any information, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, we want a nonpartisan investigation, and that's going to include ensuring that President Trump comes before our committee. Yes.
Do you have questions about the Clinton Global Initiative and the fundraising?
There's going to be questions asked about that. So thank you very much. We'll come back out. Thank you. Thank you.
They should really let the American public see this, dude. This should not be some closed meeting. But I guess in the next few hours, we'll get some quotes from reporters about what Clinton said about this. Apple's down to Nvidia, a slight candle to 187. She's trying. Google unveils faster version of viral AI image tool. Google is coming out every day with something new when it comes to AI for photos and videos. Oh, do they have an event today? No, they're at Samsung Unpacked. There was one Google event or one Samsung event that they were at. I wonder if they'll argue the amount that they should be repaid just should be the difference between the new tariffs and the old tariffs over the past year. You know, that's an interesting point. That could be a route that they try to go down. And again, you know, if they had done this legally through Congress, they would have had to get 2/3 of Congress. Republicans do not control 2/3 of Congress. They have a majority by 7 votes, but it's not the 65 that are needed to actually, you know, pass a bill the way the founding fathers governed it should be passed, which is 2/3 majority. So, you know, that's the other reason I think Trump decided not to go through Congress. This is also why congressional races are so important, because like realistically in this country, if you don't have Congress on your side, you can't do much. A lot of executive actions are also just like a mirage. Like they don't actually pass legislation. They can get reversed over the next administration. So you kind of need the House and the Senate on your side in a meaningful way, aka a majority, to get shit done. And I mean, Republicans have control, but they don't have that much control. And if they lose all control in the midterms outside of the executive branch, then it's like, what happens? Netflix, we are, wow. Yeah, I'm looking at Netflix at 87.62 for a second. You guys see that? That was at 11 o'clock, 3 minutes ago. What was that? That was random. That had to be a little glitch. 87.60. Then it came right back down. VG up 4, Uber up 4 as well. Yes, the Senate is 2/3, correct. House is majority. Senate, you need 2/3. But Senate, again, House has 435 people. Senate has 100. So getting 2/3 of those 100, which again, this is why Obama's presidency the last couple of years, it was tough because he did not have the Senate. And Mitch McConnell, who was the Senate Majority Leader at the time, he was not letting any Republicans vote for anything the Obama administration put forward. I mean, they were so pissed after the ACA passed. It was years of just stagnation. And I guess after the midterms, we're going to see if that could happen with Trump. TSM still down 4. NVIDIA is not really getting the bounce we need here. Actually, just touched 187. I thought it was still 186.50. I mean, at least you're seeing 187. I mean, 184 to 187, that's $3. PayPal, are we tanking? What happened? Oh, she's going down. Did Stripe pull out? PayPal, Stripe, not currently in talks. And there she goes. And there she goes. I mean, I hate to be the one to say it, but we did say a couple days ago, a lot of these rumors could be bullshit. The Papa John's rumor is the one that stands out. It was complete bullshit. It was manufactured by a bot farm in Dubai, for those that don't know the real story behind it. And it caused the 15% move that ended up being fake. I don't know who came up with this Stripe PayPal rumor, but if it's fake, the market Could be reacting to the downside. Nvidia actually getting a nice move, 187.30. PayPal down 4. It was the Jane Street rumor to pump it. Who was even the source for PayPal and Stripe? Because the source for the PayPal and Stripe not in talks is Semaphore, which is actually a relatively good media publication that's respected. I mean, who said it was PayPal and Stripe? Because just because it goes through Bloomberg doesn't mean Bloomberg. Bloomberg's just an aggregator. They're not necessarily always reporting it. I may have you watch The Office. I've seen it here and there. I've never really watched The Office. It's a good show, It's not not something I would say is top 5 show for me, but I know a lot of people do like it. But yeah, it's not been the biggest show for me. Here's some coverage on Salesforce here.
Dynatrace. But CEO Mark Benioff on the call did get a question on why are you spending so much capital on share repurchases versus using that capital on M&A. Benioff saying we're not using debt effectively. We had some acquisitions in the past like Slack and Tableau that diluted our investors. I think now is the opportunity to take some of that stock back out of the market. Now, Snowflake, the other story this hour, shares are popping by around 4%. The magnitude of the product revenue beat, it was lighter than usual, but the total remaining performance obligations, the backlog of $9.8 billion, that was above the street of $8.9 billion. That was the estimate. And Sridhar Ramaswamy, the CEO, laying out a pretty convincing approach on how Snowflake is using AI to strengthen its service of warehousing and analyzing complex data for big customers and why they don't see the hyperscalers as a big competitive threat, guys.
Seema, we've been watching the chart, especially of the IGV, 82 and change today. Although, as we said earlier this morning, it could get back to 95 and still not touch the 50-day moving average.
Right, this active debate about what we make of this mini rebound we've been seeing in software, not just today, but yesterday as well. Bank of America this morning, Carl, saying, are the AI disruption fears overpriced into this market? And then Mizuho taking a bit more of a cautious approach. They don't actually see this big rebound in the software sector, but more of the market becoming more discerning between the winners and losers within software, which I think is a fair point as the focus really turns to earnings and which companies are growing their AI agent capability platforms and which ones are still trying to figure out what their role is.
Yes, we're getting used to this new term, agentic work unit out of CRM, something they pushed last night.
Yes.
Seema, thanks. Seema Modi on software today. Let's stick with the slew of tech earnings out last night and what it might tell us about the AI disruption trade. Joining us this morning, Wedbush Securities Head of Technology and Media Trading, Joel Kalina. Joel, it's good to have you. Thanks for the help.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
On Nvidia, at least, do you think the price action's more a comment on the future of their clients rather than the company itself?
Potentially. I think obviously it was touched on earlier at the top of your show. I mean, the result.
That guy has a Bloomberg terminal as his background. That is a lot going on right there. Those are 7 screens with the terminal. That's what my setup should look like, but it doesn't. But that's a real terminal.
Were fantastic. I mean, especially on the April quarter guide, 78 billion. Buy side was around 73 billion. Obviously, it's not also including Chinese revenues as well. Demand visibility is pushing out into 2027. But I think with Nvidia, we've gotten very accustomed to the stock, whether it's a GTC event, Jensen giving keynote, his quarterly results. The T+1 reaction has just been extremely lackluster part of the past 2 to 3 quarters. And it's still the same old concerns around memory pricing, competition, power constraints. And again, it was touched on earlier as well. Like Nvidia's become sort of the funding short as tech dollars have kind of gone into the more sexier pockets of the group that have had higher upward revisions. So I think optical, memory, storage, semi equipments have been on fire for the past 2 quarters. So it's sort of just become a lazy funding short for at least over the past, like I said, 2 to 3 quarters.
Yeah, Bespoke's got a good table this morning of NVIDIA's last 6 quarters where it was a double beat each time, but open to close, they are down every time.
Yeah. Yeah, and and right now, you had the margins are still holding as well in the mid 70s, but there is.
I mean, again, the analysts are bullish. Everyone's bullish. It's just this stock isn't necessarily cooperating, although you are getting at least a room for a move from 184.50. Hopefully we can hold on to it. S&P as well, only $2 away from 690. It was down a lot more than what it is right here. New York Times, Iran's supreme leader has banned American companies from entering Iran in the 2015 nuclear deal, but is now granted permission. That's weird. So American companies have been banned since 2015, and now he's granting permission. Okay, obviously he is trying to show some goodwill to the Trump administration. I don't think that's going to solve the issue of the nuclear weapon program that they want to be down. Foreign Ministry spokesperson for Iran said negotiations were conducted in a very intense and serious manner. Renegotiations will resume in Geneva in 20 minutes, 11:30 today, after roughly 3 hours of discussions earlier today. He confirmed that very important and practical proposals and initiatives were discussed. He stressed the talks are solely nuclear, centered on Iran's right to the peaceful use of nuclear energy and the lifting of unjust sanctions, which he said must be made a main component of any agreement. I mean, he's trying to act like it's diplomatically going well, but realistically, we just have no clue. Meta goes green, Tesla stays red, Broadcom still down 6. Hillary Clinton to tell House Oversight Committee in opening statement she has no information about the criminal activities of Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. I guess we'll see if Bill Clinton says the same here. I mean, that's we're going to get a bunch of quotes from that throughout the day. We'll see what happens there. All right, so that's what we got today, right? That's what we got. Ugly dump. Hopefully it doesn't continue. But nonetheless, still a dump. Tony, thanks for the $20 super chat. You need to look at Roblox. You know, I have not gone as deep on the rabbit hole on Roblox. I know their growth is pretty good. They aren't profitable yet, which they kind of have to get to. But the stock has been slammed from 140 to 70. So, you know, if you are a Roblox shareholder, this would be your opportunity to double down. S&P is still 688.25. Novo is, wow, this thing fell below 40. This thing got hit as well. Marvell's down 4, Amcor's down 5, AMD's down 4. All the semi names continuing to get hit with Nvidia, even though you got a little bounce on Nvidia. SanDisk down 3. Duolingo is up 6% today. They've got earnings. Microsoft above 400. The SaaS names are still holding on, not as strongly as they were about an hour ago, but they're still holding. Figma's up 1, App11's up 3, AppCellera's up 11. But Nvidia is the main one right here getting hit. Palantir as well, even that 135 holding on to it. I think Nvidia will be okay once they're done with the options expiring tomorrow, then maybe by the end of the day or tomorrow. I forgot. Tomorrow is Friday. We probably do have a ton of options expiring on Nvidia. All right. I think that's it for us on the day. We can take a look at the stock draft here. Matt, again, we looked at it yesterday. It continues to be well in the lead. I'm at 15. Matt's at 31. Tanner's at 7. Tanner did have the trade desk, which is his biggest loser. I have Duolingo. Steve's at negative 0.7. Chris is at negative 1. So you got Matt money. And if Rocket Lab crushes it tonight, we'll continue to get some more momentum. All right, let's do word of the day and then we're done. Unfortunately, we did not get the move we wanted on Nvidia. Having said that, this entire market has continued to be playing games with us every day around the choppiness, and it's kind of inevitable that Nvidia would dump right after earnings, but they're not dumping for the wrong reason. Like if they're dumping for algorithmic concerns, for capex concerns, yada yada, like it's not Nvidia's fault. And this market, I don't even want to imagine where it would be if it was Nvidia's fault. So I do think you hold on to your horses. I bought the dip today. I think under 200 is probably a decent deal. It's not like a deep value deal, but it is a deal. And you're paying for one of the best companies on the planet that continues to grow. All right, word of the day. Now, again, before word of the day, we do have a lot of earnings today. So today we'll have Macro Thursday, but once again, Rocket Lab, SoundHound, Dell, CoreWeave, Duolingo, MP, Intuit, SMR, Zscaler, Square, Marathon, Monster, Wolf, lots and lots of companies reporting today. So it will be a very busy market close for about 30 minutes getting through all the numbers. And then we'll get into the more macro conversation for today. Okay. I think I know this word. I think I know it. Yeah, INOD as well. They have earnings. Temerity. I think I've heard this before. Excessive confidence or boldness, audacity, sometimes bordering on recklessness. It takes a certain temerity to size up aggressively when everyone else is fearful. Which is basically, if you're buying the dip today on Nvidia, you're showing temerity. I'm pretty sure I said this correctly. Let's see.
Temerity.
There you go. Not too bad. Instant coffee is helping out. It's helping out. When are you coming to Chicago? May 30th, most likely. We'll have more details on that soon. Again, the LA meetup, March 28th. Very, very excited to see people who come to LA. You can get your tickets right here if you are in the Los Angeles area. There's a link for a discount to the hotel. The event is going to be happening at a hotel as well. And March is going to be crazy, guys. We have multiple events. We have GTC. I'll be in California multiple times. Got some interviews set up. So, yeah, March should be a fun month. A lot of traveling, a lot of moving around. But should be fun, and it'll culminate in the meetup towards the end of LA, which will be fun. London, most likely August. Again, Chicago, most likely May. Singapore, most likely June. April will take that month off, and LA for March. All right, I'll be back on the close. We'll see what we got going on. Nvidia almost 187.50. Nice little pop from 184. And we'll keep going from there. We will keep going from there. When India, my dad's actually probably going to India in a couple months to do something. I want to go with him, but it's going to be crazy in the middle of, earnings cycle, and because we start back in April. So it'll be tough, but I would love to do a meetup in India. It would be fun. All right. Oh boy, as soon as I want to leave. Afghanistan has launched retaliatory attacks on Pakistani border post, Taliban military unit says. Well, it's the Middle East. I guess we're going to have to deal with a lot more of this stuff. So we'll be waiting on some more Iran headlines after the Geneva negotiations. We'll keep an eye on this new Afghanistan retaliatory attack, which, again, the market trying to price all this stuff in. And then the Hillary Clinton testifying should be done in about 3 hours. We'll probably get some more quotes from that. So we'll recap all of that at the end of the market close. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. We'll be back for the market close, and we'll keep going from there. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.